Call the meeting to order at 6:02 PM. This is the Board of Selectmen's meeting of Tuesday, March 22nd, 2016. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
So, if we're not live, do you want to wait until, Tracy, are we going to go live at some point?
That's Carol.
Oh, Carol. Looking at Tracy.
No.
We're not going to go live,
We're
okay.
just reading from-
I was just going to say, reading the announcements.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
It can probably play out tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Public announcements and upcoming meetings. Announcements. Open burning season will run until April 30th. Permits are available at Fire Headquarters, 505 Liberty Street, daily from 9 to 5. The cost of a permit is $20, payable by check or money order, made out to the town of Hanson. No cash will be accepted. Hanson Water has announced that a full water ban is now in effect. Handheld hoses will be permitted during open burning. Hanson Business Network will meet on Wednesday, April 6th at 7 p.m. in the offices of Coletta and Cutler, located at 620 County Road, Hanson, Massachusetts. This meeting will be a networking event. Light refreshments will be served. Please RSVP to Laura Fitzgerald Kemet at lfitzkemet@gmail.com. If you are interested in joining the HBN, that's the Hanson Business Network, or have any questions. On April 13, 2016, the Hanson Community Preservation Committee, the CPC, will be holding its annual public open forum, meeting from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at Hanson Town Hall. We will be highlighting some of the projects that Hanson's Community Preservation Act, CPA money, funded in 2015, and discussing the CPC master plan that we are drafting in 2016. Committee members will be on hand to discuss CPA and how CPA monies might benefit the housing, open space, historic preservation, and recreational needs of Hanson. Potential grant applications, particularly members of other town boards and committees, and general public are encouraged to attend. Please email us at cpchanson@gmail.com for questions, or for more information about the CPA, visit our website at www.hansonCommunityPreservation.org. The fourth annual Epic Youth Battle of the Bands will be held April 15th at 6:30 p.m. in the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School Performing Arts Center. Come watch local rock bands compete against one another for cash and bragging rights. Tickets are $10 each and will be sold at the door. If you are interested in participating in this event, please visit our website at www.panthereducationtrust.org for an application. Please contact lfitzkemet@gmail.com with any questions. Nomination papers for the May 21st annual town election are available at the town clerk's office. Deadline to take out nomination papers is Friday, April 1st. Nomination papers are due to the town clerk's office by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, April 5th. A minimum of 50 certified signatures are required of registered voters is necessary in order for the candidate's name to be placed on the ballot. The following positions are open: moderator for 1 year, town clerk for 3 years, planning board for 5 years, 2 trustees of Memorial Field for 3 years, 2 trustees of the public library for 3 years, 2, Whitman Hanson Regional School District Committee, pre-K through 12 for 3 years. Selectmen for 3 years. Board of Health for 3 years. Tree Warden for 3 years. Assessor 3 years. Cemetery Commissioner 3 years. 2 Water Commissioners for 3 years. And Hanson Fire Chief for 5 years. Only kidding, Jerry.
You watch how many applications now we're gonna get on that.
No one has taken out papers for the following offices: Board of Health, wow, Cemetery Commission, Planning Board, and 2 seats on Memorial Field Trustees. So rush right down to the town clerk's office tomorrow and take out those nomination papers. Please, we beg of you. Okay, that completes the, there's
Oh,
more
the
here?
next page.
There's more in the next page.
So,
Goodness, what do we have here? Oh, okay. Upcoming meetings, there we go. Capital Improvement Committee will meet on March 28th at 7 PM. Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, March 29th at 7 PM. Finance Committee, Tuesday, March 29th at 7 PM. Open Space Committee, Monday, April 4th at 7 PM. Board of Selectmen, Tuesday, April 5th at 7 PM. Board of Selectmen, Tuesday, April 12th at 7 PM. Community Preservation on Wednesday, April 13th, 7 PM, annual forum. Board of Selectmen, Tuesday, April 19th at 7 PM. Board of Selectmen, Tuesday, April 26th at 7 PM. Town meeting preview will be featured in that one. And that concludes our public announcements and upcoming meetings. Okay. Now, I'm going to, should we go over the questions now, Mary?
Well, if we want to pick questions, if everybody's settled with the
Is
questions.
everybody
we're-
settled with the questions that they're gonna ask at this point? Kenny, Bill, everybody?
are you gonna read this out loud?
Yeah, I'm gonna read that.
Do we have enough to ask all of them?
Yeah. I don't know, it'll depend on the time.
All right.
Right. I
It's
mean,
45 minutes each, right, Mary?
Correct,
Yeah. And what time is the first interview?
6:15.
Okay. So let me read this into the record, just so that everybody knows where we're going tonight with this. Hi, Greg. You can come on in and sit right down front here. Okay. At tonight's town meeting, the Hanson Board of Selectmen, we will be interviewing the 4 candidates for the position of town administrator. These candidates were chosen by the search committee after the posting of a town administrator job description and qualifications and salary range in the MMA and other media. 30 candidates were reviewed by the committee. 8 were interviewed, and 4 were chosen as the finalists to be recommended to the Board of Selectmen for consideration. Those 4 candidates were chosen as follows in the order of interviews: Gregory Enos of Brockton, Michael McHugh of Mansfield, Chauner Hurd of Lakeville, and Sarah Amaral Smith of East Bridgewater. The interview process will proceed with a round-robin type questioning from the Board of Selectmen. Certainly follow-up questions will be allowed where individual members feel it is necessary. We have endeavored to set a 45-minute time limit for each interview, but naturally, the time can run over or under depending upon the length of the questioning and the answers in particular instances. Following the interview, it is hoped that the board can narrow the field to the final 2. If the board feels comfortable with how the interviews have gone, this could well take place this evening. But that will be up to the majority of the board, as there should be no necessary rush to judgment on this important decision if they decide otherwise. Should the board succeed in narrowing the field to 2 this evening, to 2 finalists, the 2 finalists with the final selection to take place next Tuesday evening, pending final background and additional reference checks. And if the board doesn't have any questions on this, I think we can get started with the first interview. Anybody all set? Okay. Our first candidate for the Board of Selectmen is Gregory Enos of Brockton, and I know that he's the Assistant Town Administrator in the town of Whitman. Greg, before we get started with the questioning, could you tell us a little bit about your background, why you applied for the position, and why you feel you're the best candidate?
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be here tonight. I believe the position will be a natural progression in my career in public service. One that I didn't plan on pursuing, however, after getting talked out of law school by a former governor, and realizing that a major portion of nonprofit work is asking people for money, I looked at a career that would best fit my goal of working with people for the betterment of the community, and that is how I landed in municipal government. I decided in this career field by pure luck, and I've enjoyed my last 4 years in the town of Whitman, prior to that, 6 years in the city of New Bedford. I have worked in many different facets of local government, and once I have taken the position as assistant town administrator, I have requested and have pursued every sort of type of training I can get my hands on to better my career and my skill set, in the hopes of one day reaching this goal of, interviewing for the town manager or administrative position. And I feel that the town of Hanson, being locally, I have good knowledge base of what's been going on, some of the backgrounds of the towns, we're having a shared school district, and felt that it would be a great opportunity for myself.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, well, this is going to be round robin type of questioning, so I'll start to my left with, you should introduce the board. Do you have a method? This is Donald Howard.
How do you do, Greg? Jim McGann.
Bruce Young.
Phil Scott.
Kenny Mitchell.
And our executive assistant to the Board of Selectmen, Mary Marini, who I'm sure you've
Once or twice.
talked to a few times.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll start with Dawn.
All right, Greg, what do you see as your role as a town administrator?
I think the role is, is basically laid out in the acts that you guys have passed. It is a advisory position, and in terms of implementing the policies as set forth by the Board of Selectmen, I don't feel that it is different than what I'm doing in the town of Whitman, just in the assistant position as opposed to town administrator. I take my guys from the Board of Selectmen, who's my appointing authority, and advise them on procedures and policies that I see as fit, present to the Board of Selectmen for approval, and implement and take out the roles that the Board of Selectmen may choose.
Thanks, Jim.
No, that's good, thanks.
Oh, you have a follow-up, Dawn?
Do you have a follow-up? If the administrator was out, you'd take his position, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Was it about a month or two of my first month on the job? Mr. Lynham, who's the town administrator in Whitman, said, I feel comfortable with you enough. I'm going to 2 weeks in Vermont. Have a good, hopefully I'll have a good trip, and I'll see you in two weeks. So I've, baptism by fire, I guess is what they say, and I've been, whenever he goes away, I'm the lead person in charge.
That's what I meant,
Yeah.
Greg. Thank you.
Okay. Jim?
Greg, how would you handle conflict between subordinates, peers, and even board members?
Well, you handle each of them differently. I think when you have to figure out what the personalities are of the individuals, conflicts can arise in many different ways, and you try to nip them in the bud prior to them getting to that point. Try to be proactive in searching out issues that you could, kind of figure out what's going on, and try to talk to people prior to those things blowing up. I try to make sure that I talk frequently to the different department heads and see what's going on and what's potentially going up. In terms of the Board of Selectmen, it's a little bit different. You want to make sure you have an open line of communications at all times, and deal with situations as they arise as quickly as possible. Present anything that, ask them what exactly is their issue, try to figure out where they're coming from. Is there something that is not being seen that they, maybe we're doing it right, but they're not understanding the way we're doing it.
Sure.
Maybe it's something completely different. And just trying to figure out the different facets of it and just listening. I think 90% of the time you can solve issues just by listening.
Thank you.
Greg, how would you go about getting the land use committees in town on the same page and help them work together to assist applicants through the process, licensing process, and avoid throwing up any additional and unwanted roadblocks in order to help attract more commercial establishments in the town of Hanson?
Sure, that's an issue in a lot of different towns. I think one of the things you try to do is get everyone in the same room together. One of the things I would suggest is there's a professor from Northeastern who does this program, DSAT, where they ask the different people about 300 questions, and you try to get a sense of what's going on in the town, what works, what doesn't. And from that, get the different planning, ZBA, assessors, building, permitting officers, and try to get them all on the same page. And we'll have them as part of the key members of that group that gets those questions asked. Because sometimes it's territorial. Planning and ZBA sometimes don't get along. Ours actually sued each other about 20 years ago. So it's probably not as bad as that now in other towns, but just try to get them understanding of it. There's some great different intermunicipal groups that you could probably hire as groups to look at zoning and try to feel each other out to see what's the best use of their time and get a sense of what the differences are. Sometimes it's, like I said, just by listening, you may figure out they're not that far apart. Sometimes that's as simple as that.
Good. Bill?
Okay. Basically, the question is how you might ensure that departments are doing their jobs. All departments have to have the authority to do their jobs, but there's also how would you apply holding them accountable for those jobs?
Sure. Well, it can vary depending on how the different setups are, whether it's appointed or elected. That's kind of a key point there. But one of the things I would work on is just, again, what I said before about dialogue prior to. I can't hold them accountable if I don't know what their job is. I can't hold them accountable if I don't give them the skill set or the tools to do the job successfully. So prior to any of those evaluations, figuring out what they're doing efficiently is me understanding the jobs that they're supposed to be doing, understanding what resources they have or what resources they need to be successful, and then make sure that we're on the same page of what I expect from them. I'm giving you these tools, I'm giving you these resources, this is what I expect. Make sure there's an open dialogue and continue that even after, if I see something that I'm not liking, bring it up in a timely manner, discuss it. Last thing I want to do is surprise somebody by them not understanding where my frustration is coming from if they're not doing something. And I want to make sure that they can come to me if they're upset, thinking that they don't have the tools necessary. And I think it's a two-way street to make sure that I give them what they need to be successful.
Ken?
Yep. Discuss a situation where there's been opposition to a project or a plan and how you would deal with it.
Okay. You want real life or?
Yeah, real life. Real life. If you have one.
Sure. One of the things we had to do recently was remove a person from employment for the town of Whitman. When that opened up, it opened up a position as a janitorial services for 3 buildings. It was a 1-person full-time job. One of the things I wanted to look at was consolidating that into a contract position. So it would mean hiring a janitorial firm similar to what the Region High School did for their services. And of course, we got the same sort of kickback from certain department heads that were in charge of those buildings. They wanted their own person, they wanted their hours, they wanted to have a certain set thing, they liked the way it was working somewhat. So what that involved was really, listening to them, understanding what their problems were, sitting down with them and get a day in and day out of what they expect the person who would be employed in that position would be doing. Writing up a job description, letting them see what you're posting and how we're doing it. And when we brought in firms to interview for that type of service, I made sure the department heads were aware that we're going to walk through. They got to meet the owners of the company and ask any questions that they needed to. And lo and behold, we were able to
hire the firm, save the town about $40,000 a year, and have had pretty good reviews so far. I think it was just that initial stage of making sure that everyone was aware of it, being transparent, making sure that they had a full understanding of what was going on. This is a trial process. Let's see how it works. We're going to give them 6 months, see what happens. If there's something that doesn't happen, always call me, contact me directly if something's wrong, and we'll take care of it. And I had 2 of the department heads who I didn't think was going to be on board contact me in the first 2 months and said, I can't believe this is working out as good as it is. So I take that as a big plus on my side.
Good, thank you.
Back to Don.
How would you notify the board of activities between meetings?
What do you mean by activities between
Well,
meetings?
activities that are going on that we wouldn't notice, you'd have somebody come to you and somebody would want to have an activity or something, and you didn't know whether or not you should grant it or whatever. How would you go about notifying the board what was happening so that,
Well, one thing I would first like to do is create a policy in terms of that type of thing, whether it's this Board of Selectmen handbook, and figure out a way to process to do that, whether it's me contacting the chair directly and passing things by, making sure. There's certain things you want to be able to send through email, and some things you don't want to because of the open meeting law. You don't want to set some sort of issues up with that. But we would set a process in place, whether it's, if there's a week before a Board of Selectmen's meeting, how I would do that, what I would get for feedback. It might be if it's an activity that's going on in town hall, it could be a simple email, but if it's something that I need a verbal vote, I wouldn't necessarily send it through an email. I would try to coordinate something with the board and the process we'd have in place for that.
okay, thank you.
Jim?
Fred, can you explain your concept of teamwork and how you would work to encourage cooperation?
Sure, I think teamwork is a very major portion of this job. You learn soon enough that you will try to surround yourself with the smartest and brightest people because they always make you look better. So, I try to get all the different input I can. I try to not work in a silo, so to speak. I think I pretty much know I'm not the smartest person in the room. And a wise man once said that, Wiseman says that he knows so little. And so I try to come up with those ideas and impacts, send them out to different department heads, work with them on cultivating that teamwork idea. And I think cooperation of it is key, but in the end, the town administrator, the board of selectmen, they're the ones that have the final say. So you have to have them aware of that process in the end, and that you're working as a team and you're moving this along, but the final decision is going to be up to the town administrator, the board of selectmen.
Thank you.
Okay. This is a hypothetical question for you.
Everybody loves those.
Yeah. You're approached by 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, and they ask you to do all you can to support and promote a multi-million-dollar town project, which calls for the approval of a debt exclusion at town meeting and a subsequent ballot question to appear on the ballot. They ask you to set up a social media page expressly for that purpose and to limit public input to just those who have positive comments on the project. How do you respond, and how do you view your limitations as far as promoting that project on behalf of the Board of Selectmen to the town meeting, and also your limitations in promoting it as a ballot question?
That doesn't seem as hypothetical as I thought it was. I'll leave it at that. But in terms of the board, my role is administer the policy set forth by the Board of Selectmen, not 2 members, not 1. The majority of the board and the vote of the board would allow me to move that project along. If I had 2 members approach me, I would say that sounds like something, it's a great idea, bring it up in the Board of Selectmen. If you guys voted and that's what you want me to do, okay, let's set up some parameters, how we do it. In terms of allowing only positive comments, that's something I'm not really big on, because I don't think sitting yourself in a glass house and having only good things about you or what you're doing is going to be something that is going to be productive. Sometimes some of the best things you come up with are from things you realize are your deficiencies. So I wouldn't necessarily want to set it up that way, but it'd be something up to the Board of Selectmen. In terms of bringing it to the town meeting, again, if it's the will of the Board of Selectmen and it's voted on, then I would be, as my role as town administrator would be to present it and talk positively about it.
Okay, let me just have one follow-up on this.
Sure.
Assuming the project, let's assume it's a debt exclusion, which basically results in the ballot question becoming a valid issue. How do you view your role in promoting it and the limitations of that role leading up to the ballot question vote?
My role is whatever the board wants, but what I would generally look at is presenting both sides of the argument of what it would be in terms of the yearly cost for a resident taxpayer, what it would provide, what it would potentially exclude the town from doing in the future of any other capital projects you're looking at doing. But I try to be as neutral as possible, as I don't have as much skin in the game, not being a taxpayer in the town, but wanting to give as much information out as possible.
Okay, great, good.
Can I do one follow-up to that? So how do you feel about posting your contract on social media?
I think all contracts are public record,
yeah.
and they should be on. I'm just trying to get the last couple CBAs finalized and approved, so I can try to get my town administrator board, so I can post.
What about your personal contract? If you were hired as town administrator and you're going up for review, would you be inclined to place it on social media to pressure the Board of Selectmen to renegotiate?
Oh, that, no, it's a different,
Yeah,
that's a different question.
That's okay.
Most of my contract period, that's.
Yeah,
that's
you're
fine.
talking about public stuff that's open, and
It's
that's
an open
correct.
record, you can
right.
have it up there.
I'm talking about personal media.
Again, it's a hypothetical,
Yeah,
not knowing any background about any situation. I think it's a little difficult to have a position as a town administrator
Mhm.
and use certain platforms in that manner.
and be neutral, like you said, yes,
You know,
absolutely.
you try to remain neutral, you know. This the funny thing about social media, everyone loves it until you really screw up.
That's not entirely true.
Yeah, and
Not
so,
everyone loves it.
yeah, well, most people who are on it love it for the certain fact that, you know, it's instantaneous, and then people don't realize you instantaneously forget to proofread something or check something, and oh, I didn't really want to say that, and so it's a double-edged sword with social media.
Bill?
Thank you.
Yeah, as you are probably aware, the way the government here in the town of Hanson, Finance Committee, as being one of the committees, is appointed by our town moderator. How would you define the relationship you would have with them in relation, back and forth to the Board of Selectmen?
I would have to look at the full setup of the finance, if it's an advisory committee, similar to how we are in Whitney. We have a very active finance committee that has taken a great length in setting up the budget, working with the budget with the town administrator. I'd have to see what the relationship is with the finance committee and the Board of Selectmen, to figure out how the Board of Selectmen want me to interact with the FinCom. There could be anything from working step in step with the budget. It could be me creating the budget and presenting it to FinCom. There's a slew of different opportunities to work with the FinCom, but again, I'll make sure what the Board of Selectmen want me to figure out first.
Kenny?
How would you define your management style as a town administrator?
I try not to micromanage, because as I figure out in my own day-to-day life, I have enough things to worry about. But I want to make sure I have an open door policy, so that everyone knows if there's an issue that I am there for them. I try, like I said before, try to figure out what type of tools and skills are needed and resources, and try to provide as much support as I can, so that they're not blindsided and I'm not blindsided by an issue that I didn't know about, and just an open dialogue, making sure that, if something comes up, they can come to me right off the bat and make sure that we're fully aware on the same page. I don't want to have surprises. I think some of the biggest things you can do is not handle something today that you can put off tomorrow. And so you try to make sure you take care of things right away and make sure they understand that too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go back to Don.
Yeah. Yes, well, what efforts have you made to learn about the town of Hanson? Have you ever,
Want to start over? Start over, Tom.
Parchment's the-
You got your eye okay?
no, I have problems with my eyes, all right, so I'm gonna start over.
Sure.
What efforts have you made to learn about the town of Hanson? And have you read the Town Administrators Act? And how can we govern better?
I have the copy of the acts in this little folder here. I've looked at town reports, I've worked at, newspaper articles, I've talked to certain people in town. We happen to share a couple employees, so I've been in the loop on the different things that are going on in town of Hanson. How to manage better, that is difficult, a question to answer from the outside in. It would take me some time to get a full understanding of the board, how they handle things, what things they can and cannot do. But I think one of the things I like to do is make sure there's policies and procedures in place. I think that is the easiest way to avoid issues and conflict, because when something comes up, you can always point to the policy and say, no, I want to do it this way because that's how we had it planned out. So I would have to look at a full breadth of policies and procedures that are set up, how things are going on. But I think it would be one of the first things I'd like to
All
tackle.
right, but you haven't read the act, though?
I have.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
Yeah, I'm fine.
okay.
Well, can I ask a follow-up to that one?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. How do you see the, what would you view as the most important aspects of the authority granted to the town administrator in Hanson's Town Administrator Act? And what do you understand to be the most important limitations of the office in that act?
One of the most important, I would say, is in terms of the reviews of the department heads and personnel. I think it's one of the things you want to make sure, once a year, you get in that dialogue, but you don't want it to be just a once-a-year thing. You want it to be a constant thing, like I said before. But you want to make sure you have that as a stepping stone to improve employees and make sure that they understand where you're coming from and have that dialogue at least once or twice a year. But having that set of documents. One of the things that's most limiting is some of the things in terms of just about the town administrator. The process of going through something, dealing with electric boards, and then going to the board of selectmen, getting a vote, going back and forth. It's just something that's standard in administrators or town manager positions, but I think it's allows the board of selectmen to have the voice that they're elected to have, and it's just a matter of working with the process that you have.
Okay, great, thank you. Jim?
Okay. What role do you see for the town administrator in the area of community involvement?
Do you mean like me being involved in the community or getting more Hanson Pride type of events?
More involved with the community, because
Sure.
we have Hanson Day,
Sure.
and that type of thing.
I think those things are very important. I think, taking a lead on it may not be something I would advantageously want to do in terms of timing, but, helping out with what I can, whether it's promoting it, whether it's, helping them with marketing, research, grants, those type of things. Working on different events that we could work with recreation in terms of the different summer programs, getting the different things that you could possibly do with all the different water views and the ponds and the parks and the camp, and try to figure out ways to improve those facilities and make them more readily available to the public.
So one of the follow-up questions I had on those grants, because according to your resume, you've assisted in 3 particular items on grant projects, right? One was the successful grant proposal for synthetic soccer field. Is that
Yep.
at the high school?
That was actually in Bedford. It was $100,000 through a soccer foundation for a field in New Bedford. That was through, I think it was the U.S. Soccer Academy,
Okay.
and that was one of their.
And you did the one for landscaping and playground equipment, $100,000?
Yep.
And another one for $150,000 abandoned housing rehabilitation grant from the Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
So did you, so you have got extensive grant writing experience, right?
Yeah, and I also just got what been designated as a green community, which resulted in $166,000 from the state. I've also received $35,000 from Mass Development to do a Site 2 and 3 assessment of the Regal Shoe property on South Avenue. Usually they should do loans for that funding, but I was able to work with Mass Development on the issue and was actually able to receive a grant for the property, which they've never done before. And we don't actually own the property, so again, it was something that they never had to do, so we had to work through some legal loopholes, so to speak, but he actually, gotten that taken care of, and we're getting the report in a couple weeks to see how bad that site is contaminated. It's one of the last open industrial lots available in the town of Whitman, so it's something that we're looking to strategize next, so keeping all our options open.
Thank you. And you do, I assume since you've been the admin, you've done financial reports to the Board of Selectmen monthly, too? Obviously, you must.
We do financial reports monthly. We do have software that prints out all the different accounts, and we put it up on the website.
Okay.
We don't necessarily present it each month to the Board of Selectmen. They sign all the warrants, and we have, some sort of reporting what we could do.
Yeah.
But we don't have a system where we have a monthly report just on accounting.
Okay, thank you.
How do you see your role in as far as the Town Administrator Act is concerned when it comes to procurement and preparing requests for proposals under the Board of Selectmen?
The RFP, the only person who can do that is if I'm designated as a Chief Procurement Officer. Without a designated Chief Procurement Officer, the town's not supposed to do RFPs. Once I'm designated the Chief Procurement Officer, I'll work with the town to designate how they want the RFP to be done, but I know I'm the Chief Procurement Officer as part of the act,
Right.
but I believe
Yes.
sending it to the Attorney General's office, you still have to have a vote and have it in their office listed as Chief Procurement Officer.
Yeah, what has been your experience, and what experience do you have in preparing RFPs?
We've done some for the air conditioning project. I did an RFQ for the engineer, designer for the HVAC system. Then we did the invitation, it was an invitation bid for the construction. But RFPs, sometimes there's some pros and cons to them. We try to steer a lot more towards invitational bids, only because sometimes RFPs can open you up for interpretation of how you set them up. But we've done them for the Mass Historical grant that I got. We're doing historical surveys. We did an RFP for that because it's kind of a technical position. You kind of want a certain skill set that is much more visible in an RFP process. So we set up a committee. We got the different point systems set up, and the Historical Commission was the awarding authority. So we worked with the different commission that was involved and moved the projects along, and they're almost wrapped up.
Okay, thank you.
I got a follow-up. What's the dollar amount that something has to go out to an RFP, a project?
RFP?
Yeah.
It depends on what you're doing. If you're doing construction, or if you're doing a 30B, if you're doing design services, there's different thresholds, but they're actually looking to evolve that as part of the governor's modernization bill. They're restructuring the different thresholds for procurement, so there's different levels right now.
Bill?
Why would you feel you're a good fit for a town administrator's job? You're probably pretty aware of the goings-on, being from Whitman and everything, with the kind of strained relationship with some of the issues in town.
Well, I feel in terms of my first, job as a town administrator, I feel that the proximity of where I've been for the last 4 years, having that knowledge, having that, working relationship with the different departments in the town of Hanson gives me a little more comfort level, a little more understanding of the different things going on, understanding the issues with the schools, with going on in that arena, and getting a sense of the different community things going on. So I felt that was a great fit for me. I feel that knowing the different things, but also working closely with the different people in the town of Hanson, I think gives me a leg up.
Explain your municipal financial experience.
A lot of it has just been working with the town administrator and the FinCom, creating the budget, working on it, getting aware of the software. You know, we have a little bit bigger budget, but it's a little more different in terms of some of our enterprise accounts. So, I mean, I've been working on that different thing. I think financially, and the processes and going through that is one of my things that I want to work on. But for the last 3 years, 4 years, I've been slowly developing those skill sets, working with the town administrator. You know, I've been doing different budgets for different departments. I was interim recreation director for a summer by default, so I had a fun experience of working on that budget for summer while also doing my regular job, and just working on the budget on a month-to-month basis, figuring out what projects we're doing, what's going forward, and slowly but surely learning everything I can. It's an ongoing process.
So what does he do all day then?
This is taped, right?
It's not allowed.
No, Frank does a lot of stuff with the HR, but he does a lot of, I mean, he's the budget guy. He's the budget guy, he's the HR guy. I set up a policy and a bylaw to name him as the personnel director. And we are just wrapping up our personnel handbook right now, so that's been a big weight on his shoulders that we're working on now, so.
Okay, thank you.
We've got time for another round of questions, Don, if you have, do you have another question you'd like to ask?
No.
Okay. Jim, do you have anything?
I do. How do you view the level of importance of the position of municipal representative from the Town of Hanson Regional School Committee, who acts as a member of the school committee on all matters concerning collective bargaining? And do you know where to get that information?
With that?
And do you know where you would get that information from? The role of the municipal rep?
Yes. In the agreement between regional schools and, again, I'm sure this is a hypothetical question, but it is in the agreement between the regionals and sort of towns, and it is something that has been in the news, so to speak, recently. And, you know, I again, as an outsider, I don't want to say the process that was done before, but it's something that obviously I think communication between the schools and the towns and the different towns that are involved in the district can be improved upon.
How do you see your role as a member of the emergency management team and working with the other members? How do you view your role in emergency communications to the public, emergencies, and working with them?
Well, I think in terms of public safety, they're the ones who are generally the frontline people that are involved. So my job is to just assist them in any way that they can, whether that's setting up the reverse 911 calls, setting up social media posts, figuring out what they need to do in terms of closing buildings if we need to, in terms of emergency, and just letting them know that I can assist them in any way I can. They're the ones who have more expertise in terms of storm management and things like that, so I kind of acquiesce to their skill. They're paid professionals and trained on these things on a regular basis, and my job is just to provide support as they need fit.
Okay. Bill, you have any more? Anything else? No? Kenny?
Yeah, just one more question. What is your impression of the current state of the town of Hanson's financial condition, and how would you go about stabilizing it, improving it if necessary?
Like most towns around here, everyone wants more industry, more jobs. I think every single town you talk to says they don't have enough, commercial real estate jobs in there. And in terms of the budget, I think last I looked, it's stable. It's not robust. It's not there. It's similar to the town of Whitman. It's a blue collar town. They have a certain set of money, a certain set of pie, and you can only get so much pie from the little crust there. So how you build upon it is try to look at inefficiencies, whether that's through, one of the things I would look at is, since the town of Hanson did pass the stretch code, which is the hardest part of the Green Communities Act, I would look at Looking at that, that's probably get you about $150,000 to do energy retrofits, which would be able to get you immediate payback of about $100,000 a year in savings. So I look at things like that that you could do to minimize some of the smaller things that you need to do for purchase for capital. And you take those money and put it towards capital fund, and that way you have a set fund to start your capital needs projects. And things like that I would look at. Try to look at the inefficiencies that are going on now. Look at maybe potential regionalization on certain items. One of the things that I like to look at is some of these smaller towns that have, street sweepers that have each town has a street sweeper and jetters that cost $75,000. I don't know if you've ever seen one of the jetters, but they're just a truck with a hose that goes in and cleans out sewer pipes. It's something that I think if you take a town that's next over, you pay 35, they get 35, and you split it, half a week, you save yourself $30,000, $40,000. Sometimes the hardest part about that is giving up control, and so you have to deal with that process. But if you can get past that, giving up control, you can save the town, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 on pieces of equipment that you don't generally use on a day-to-day basis. And I'll look at those type of ways to save money.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? Anybody? Okay. Is there anything you'd like to ask the Board of Selectmen of Town of Hanson?
No, I heard the intro, so aware of the process that's going on, and I understand there's 3 more tonight, and the process that would be done afterwards with the final 2. So
yeah.
I've had my questions answered before from my discussions with the committee beforehand. So
all right, I'll give you a chance. I'll give you a final chance to summarize your candidacy for the board and tell us why you feel that you're probably the best candidate to select.
Sure. I believe I'm the most qualified for the position due to my diverse educational and professional background. I've been able to work in big cities and small towns in planning, economic development, community development, management, planning, and everything in between. I am familiar with the area and the issues facing the town. For these reasons, I believe that I will be able to work collaboratively with the Board of Selectmen as I have a seamless transition to the position of Town Administrator and ensure the residents of the town of Hanson receive the same quality service from this position in the office for many years to come.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Pleasure, Greg. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Is anybody up there in the county?
Can I go outside?
Can we take a,
Oh, you want to take a,
You want to take a brief
recess?
recess? Yeah.
yeah, because they may be out there.
Yeah.
There is assessing we're looking at there.
Yeah. Our next candidate for the position of Town Administrator in Town of Hanson is Michael McHugh, who lives in the town of Mansfield, and I know you're also the current Town Administrator in the town of Rochester.
Yes, sir.
And also the former Town Administrator in the town of Avon.
Yes, sir.
And it's a pleasure to have you here this evening.
Pleased to be here, John.
We're going to have like a round robin type of situation with the questions. But before we get started on the questions, we'd like you to just give us a brief background on your experience and why you feel you might be the best candidate and a good fit here for the Town of Hanson Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael McHugh, resident of Mansfield for about 20 years or so now, former member of the Board of Selectmen for 6 years. As the chairman mentioned, I'm currently the town administrator in Rochester. I've previously spent about 7 years in the town of Avon. Prior to that, I was a town administrator in Mendon. And previous to that, I was the first economic development and grant writer for the town of Walpole. Previous to that, I spent about 15 some odd years with Draper Laboratory, which is a R&D government facility in the city of Cambridge, where I did basically classified information management and things of that nature. I have an undergraduate degree in history from St. Anselm College in Manchester, New Hampshire. I have a master's degree in public administration from Bridgewater State College. When I was serving on the Board of Selectmen in Mansfield, I got involved with the MMA to the point where I rose to the level of president of the Massachusetts Selectmen's Association. I was tapped to be the next president of the MMA because it was the Selectmen's Association's turn to nominate such. I did step down from that because of work requirements and family requirements. I have been working in this field for approximately 12 or 13 years or so. And actually, I was a finalist in the town of Hanson approximately 12 years ago. I have always had an interest in the town of Hanson, particularly because my parents are 20-year residents here in the town of Hanson. I'm in the town a great deal. They actually just live up the road and around the corner. I was there, I took a quick shower before I came here. By virtue of my parents being here for so long, I'm actually aware, pretty fairly aware of the comings and goings in the town of Hanson, although again, living in Mansfield and working in Avon. So I think that I have a lot that I can bring to the table in this position in Hanson. I look forward to the opportunity to serve as your next town administrator, and I invite any questions, gentlemen.
Okay, we're going to start. We'll introduce ourselves.
Don Howard, Michael.
Jim McGann.
Bruce Young
Bill Scott.
Kenny Mitchell.
and Mary Marini, who is our executive assistant.
Yeah, wait.
Yes. So start with Don.
So, what do you see as your title as town administrator? Or what do you see as your role as town administrator in the town of Hanson?
Well, I think similar to the role I've played in 3 other communities, sir, I see myself as the generally providing oversight for all departments, making sure that all departments work cohesively without being invasive, without being intrusive. I think that my chief role will be shepherd of the budget, to make sure that we don't exceed expenditures from year to year, that we live within our means. I think in addition to that, one of my roles will be and should be to look at any opportunities that may be out there for the town of Hanson to expand its tax base, to try to alleviate the tax burden on the citizens of the town of Hanson. I have had obviously a decent amount of experience in that. I believe that my role would also be as the spokesperson for the Board of Selectmen, that I would channel information back and forth to the board. I would act as the board's go-between, not only with the citizens of the town of Hanson, but also with other municipalities, state and local officials, state reps, state senators. I would basically see myself as the face of the town of Hanson in terms of my administrative role. Obviously not in an elected position, but and having served on a Board of Selectmen for 6 years, I do think I bring to the position an understanding of what you all you gentlemen deal with and need to work through on a daily basis as members of the Board of Selectmen. So I'd like to think that I could also offer members of the board, if they were so inclined, that sort of background, that sort of insight that I've had for 6 years.
Thank you very much. You got anything?
No, obviously as a TA, you know the Town Administrator Act probably very well, I would imagine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how would you handle conflict between subordinates, peers, and board members?
Conflicts with myself or conflicts
between, let's say, even between myself and another board member, or between subordinates with you, or even between subordinates?
Certainly. I think that I've had a rather successful track record in terms of mediating conflict, acting as a go-between, acting as someone who can try to see both sides of an issue and try to bring the parties together. I served that role quite frequently. As a member of the Board of Selectmen in Mansfield, we did have 1 or 2 members of the board. We had a 5-member board such as yours. We had 1 or 2 members throughout my tenure that weren't necessarily in agreement with the majority on a fairly regular basis. particularly as the chairman of that board, I was able to find a middle ground, speak to the opposing parties, as it were, and continue to try to move the town forward. It doesn't necessarily mean that both parties need to agree and shake hands and exchange Christmas cards, but of course it's very important for people to try to put personal animosities aside, agree to disagree, and try to move forward with, whether it's on a departmental level, whether it's on a board level, whether it's even a disagreement perhaps with another community. I've found, and I think that I'm very safe in saying, that I have a very good reputation as being someone who's even-handed, approaches situations very calmly, and of course you're not going to be successful 100% of the time, but I believe that I'm successful many, many more times than I'm not. And again, I'll stake my reputation as someone who can act as a go-between, as someone who can kind of calm frayed nerves if they exist.
Thank you, Mike. Nice answer.
How would you go about getting the land use committees in town on the same page and help them work together to assist rather than hinder applicants through a licensing process, and avoid throwing up any additional and unwarranted roadblocks in order to help attract more commercial establishments in the town of Hanson?
Well, Mr. Chairman, sort of along the lines of the question I just answered, there's a lot of mediation that needs to take place. There's a lot of consideration of every party's feelings, of their priorities when encountering questions, especially in terms of land use. I see the possibility of some development here in the town of Hanson, particularly, and I'd have to look at the zoning maps, obviously. Haven't had much of a chance to go too deep into that, but in terms of the commuter rail station and transit-oriented development and whatnot, I know there's some businesses, smaller businesses that are situated around the current commuter station. We've had some experience of that in Mansfield with the Mansfield commuter station and trying to look at that for a potential business development. But to try to get back to your question, Mr. Chairman, I would try to get everyone, or I would get everyone in one room, and I would talk through the various issues. I tried to point out the positives in whatever's brought to the table. Of course, that doesn't mean that everything that's brought to the table has positives. So there's certainly a degree of examination of, what's the word I'm looking for, discretion that would need to be involved in making a decision as to whether or not something was appropriate for Hanson, and then having that conversation with the land use committee, and then potentially with the business owner. There are plenty of things that probably are not appropriate for the town of Hanson, and you have to be able to sift through those things and make those sorts of recommendations to the boards that have authority over moving forward on things. So again, to Selectman McCann's point, there's a lot of mediation, there's a lot of, I don't want to say hand-holding, that's patronizing, but there's an awful lot of trying to get sides to see both sides of an argument and come up with the best solution for the town of Hanson and for the citizens, and for the corporate citizens in the town of Hanson.
Very good, thank you. Bill?
Yes. As you know, all the departments have to have the authority to do their jobs, but how would you work on the accountability aspect with those departments as far as follow-ups on that?
Well, Selectman Scott, I am not a micromanager. I believe that the town of Hanson, the town of Rochester, the town of Avon, every town in which I've been involved, hires professionals and pays those professionals a very reasonable wage, and we expect those professionals to do their jobs. That's not to say that there are not occasions where some guidance might be needed, some reminders might be needed, some gentle nudges might be needed. I would, and I do, I have regular meetings with all of my department heads on a monthly basis. I have meetings with my financial team, as it were, the accountant, the treasurer, the collector, or sometimes one of the assessors. But those sorts of meetings allow me to have those conversations, at least in a group sense, with all of my department heads. But in addition to that, I check in with my department heads on a regular basis on a one-on-one level, so that if there's any conversation that needs to take place, whether that's coming from me or it's coming back from my department heads, that it does not necessarily need to take place in front of a huge audience of their peers. So I have had occasion, I unfortunately have had some extreme occasions in the town of Avon in which I had to dismiss employees. So whereas it's obviously not an enjoyable experience, it's not one that you wish to have to go through. Push comes to shove, if situation warrants it, then situation warrants it, and you move forward and you do what you have to do with the department head, or with a staff member, if the staff member reports directly to me. So I think that, I know that I've shown in those sorts of extreme circumstances, I've shown a very, very thorough level of investigation and backing up my actions to the point where in one of those particular situations, the town and myself were called before the MCAD, we were called before a couple other committees in Boston, and I had taken enough thorough steps that all the challenges against the town and my actions were overturned, or upheld, I should say. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Selectman Scott, but like I said, just to surmise, I don't stand over people's shoulders, I don't look over people's shoulders. I expect people who get paid very well and who are professionals to do their job. That being said, there are occasions where I need to get involved, and I try to keep those lines of communication open on a regular basis, so I can kind of nip problems in the bud before they get on the front page of the Procter Enterprise about the fold.
Okay. Discuss a situation in which there's opposition to a project or plan and how you would deal with it.
I haven't run into too many of those situations, Selectman Mitchell. I will say that when I was in the town of Walpole, there was a piece of property in South Walpole, the old bird machine factory, if any of you gentlemen are familiar with it. It changed hands, and there was an awful lot of local opposition for understandable reasons. The residents were in opposition to seeing that particular piece of property redeveloped as a commercial site. While in my role in Walpole, which was the economic development director, I thought it was important to keep that particular piece of property on the tax rolls. It had been an industrial site prior to the Civil War, so I worked with the residents. I worked with the landowner, who was out of Texas, trying to put together different sort of scenarios in which we could see that particular piece of property back on the tax rolls. One of the things we were working on just prior to my departure from the town of Walpole was a 55 and older community, which, in the grand scheme of things, the residents were more comfortable with than something that actually I'd envisioned. I actually had been talking to the craftsmen about buying the property and putting the practice facility for the Revolution there. So I got an awful lot of opposition from the people in the area. I had several meetings, several group meetings with them and with the property owners, brought actually everyone together to try to work through something that wouldn't upset the neighbors so much. And that's the way I would really approach something like that if I had real opposition. Again, it goes back to some of the questions that were already asked of me, that I think it's important to be very, very open to dialogue, bring everyone into the conversation, so everybody, even if at the end of the day you don't agree with their position or the solution isn't exactly what they were hoping for, they know that they had a place at the table, that their thoughts, their concerns were taken very seriously and weighed within the decision making. And that's the way I would deal with something like that, sir. Again, to be quite honest, I haven't run into too much opposition in terms of the things I brought to the table, the things I've been involved with in my other communities. There is some discussion right now, and it's just starting in the town of Rochester, as to whether or not we should replace the town hall. The town hall is circa 1870 or so. It's a beautiful town hall, but it's very inefficient. We also have a town hall annex that we rent from a local nonprofit, which basically splits up all the departments. You've got to go here for building, you come back to the town hall to talk with the town clerk and myself. And there is just starting out a conversation about building a brand-new town hall, which would bring all the departments in to one location. And there is some opposition to that. There's some opposition in terms of what are we going to do with the old town hall. It's a mainstay in the town of Rochester. How are we going to pay for it? Where are we going to put it? So on and so forth. And we just started the conversations. We have a very small town hall annex committee looking at what the best way to move forward for the town of Rochester is. And what we've started doing is as recently as Friday night and Saturday morning, is we've started public hearings or public meetings at various places in the town of Rochester. And we've got a lot of initial pushback on that. And, you know, we've written it all down, and we're going to take that back and mull it over and see if we can come up with some rational responses to them, to these questions that will move the project forward. So, again, that's the way I would approach something that was meeting an awful lot of opposition. I don't know how far the opposition will go down the road in this particular situation, but we will continue to have these meetings and continue the outreach and try to, again, bring everyone in to at least have a seat at the table.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, back to Don.
Yes, how would you notify the board of the activities between our meeting nights? Like we had a meeting and then next week there was, somebody came in, wanted to do an activity. How would you handle that?
Something that needed to go before the board.
Yes.
I would inform the board, dependent upon the issue, the activity. I would imagine, in a general sense, I would reach out to the board in an email to all 5 members, cognizant of the fact that there shouldn't be any interchange in that particular conversation, that's just an informative message to the 5 members. I would make sure, to the degree that I could make sure, that we didn't cross any boundaries that we shouldn't cross in terms of the open meeting law. I've seen a bit of that back and forth in the several different towns in which I worked. However, if it were something of a more sensitive or pressing nature, I would call each member if each member were, open to a phone call from me. I guess, Selectmen, how it would probably take me, several months or so to get that comfort level or get that feedback from the gentleman to understand how you want to proceed with something like that. But I've had these situations, particularly when I was sitting in one of your seats in Mansfield, where there were an awful lot of complaints that one of the members or 2 of the members weren't getting the same level of information that some of the others may have been getting. And I know that when I was the chairman of the board, I made sure that we had a town manager as opposed to an administrator. I made sure that the town manager knew that, good, bad, or indifferent, if I'm getting information, the other members, especially if there was a member that wasn't necessarily in agreement with the majority, making sure that he got that information as well. And I'm very cognizant of that, and I'm very cognizant of the problems that can cause, not only between myself and perhaps a particular member or a group of members, but between the members themselves.
No, thank you.
Jim?
The next question I have, I don't think I'm going to ask. It says, explain teamwork concept and how you work to encourage cooperation. I think you've overkilled that. Okay, Mike, I've listened to what you've had to say, so you'll have to apologize to me.
Thank you,
You
sir.
have answered it, and I would ask if this board agrees with me on it. I believe he has, so,
Yes.
okay? So I'm going to move.
I apologize if I'm getting a little long-winded.
No, I think it's,
Probably the ex-selectman in me.
no, I think it's, it's a great question, but I think you've answered it fully. So my question is going to be, so I was going through your resume. Have you written grants? Do you have state and federal
Oh,
grants?
yes. As a matter of fact, Just, was it Monday or was it Friday, I received word that I received a strap grant for $100,000 for the town of Rochester. I had written a similar strap grant for the town of Avon, which the town was awarded $500,000. So.
What is that technically, Mike?
STRAP is a small town road assistance program. And it's, the guidelines for that is it's by population. And I believe that the town of Hanson is just a little too big for it, because you're a little over 10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's 10,000 and under.
Okay.
But again, I just got $100,000 for the town of Rochester, and it was a grant opportunity of which they weren't aware. Having the experience in the town of Avon, and actually Avon, the people in Avon weren't aware of that particular grant. I mentioned it to Rochester, to the highway surveyor, who was a separately elected official. Had never heard of it, had never availed themselves of it, and I put it all together. And again, within the last couple of days or so, I got the letter saying, congratulations, here's $100,000, which means an awful lot in a town like the town of Rochester, and actually probably need a decent amount here in Hanson as well.
Mike, how do you handle the acceptance of grants? Do you
I
personally
oversee
sign
them.
from them?
Yes, I
Personally sign
oversee
from
them.
Okay.
And yes, I'm the signator. I oversee the expenditures. I oversee the reporting, just as I oversee the writing and submission of grants. That being said, with the grant that we received in Avon for $500,000, which was, if you're familiar with Avon, it basically helped us pay for the repaving of Pond Street. I did have some assistance in terms of the technical aspects of reporting back to the state, because we had hired an engineer and a clerk of the works to oversee that. So as far as all the procedural administrative stuff, I oversaw all of that.
Thank you.
They can be kind of cumbersome.
Sure.
Sure, hey, Paul.
Just a little follow-up with that. You know, we all love to get grants at time, but do you take the time, I'm sure, I shouldn't put words in your mouth, to review those grants? Because oftentimes the hoops you have to jump through with a grant don't justify the amount of money or the terms of it. It takes a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of research. How do you conduct that?
I don't disagree, sir. There's been plenty of opportunities that I felt, in the grand scheme of things, weren't worth the effort. They weren't worth staff's effort to try to get the information together. The reporting, the back reporting, a lot of federal grants can be quite cumbersome.
Yeah.
And you do have to weigh that, I agree. If you're going to get $100,000, which again is a considerable amount of money, but if it's going to take weeks and weeks and weeks of staff's time away from something else, and then on the other end, it's going to take a tremendous amount of time overseeing the expenditure, overseeing the reporting. What I found, and I did do this in Avon, one of the storms in the last couple of years or so, and we were declared, as the area was declared, a federal disaster area. And FEMA was offering, I believe it's, they give you, I think, 3/4 of your expenses back. We sat down and we looked at it, and 3/4 of what we spent wasn't worth the time and effort that it would have taken to get it, and we walked away from it. So I just don't willy-nilly say, well, there's money out there, let's start putting our time and our resources to getting it. I do take a look and make sure that it's worth the effort.
Thank you very much.
Two of the most important aspects of being a town administrator is you act as the chief negotiator on all collective bargaining issues, and you're also the chief procurement officer. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in dealing with those two very important issues in your experience in town government?
Well, certainly. I have participated in a number of CBA bargaining processes, the majority of which obviously were in Avon, since I spent most amount of my time in Avon. I have a very successful track record in terms of being the lead person for the various communities in which I've served. Obviously, I don't and wouldn't in the town of Hanson take that duty on solely by myself, I'd avail myself of legal counsel, labor counsel. Certainly, nobody knows everything, and there are certain aspects of labor law that I don't pretend to know as well as an attorney as Jay might. I had successfully worked through a number of different grievances in the town of Rochester, actually in the town of Avon, I apologize, and we've prevailed in all of those due to, again, what I like to think of myself as being a very thorough type of person who investigates and digs very deep into not only the facts of the matter, but the legal aspects of different things. In terms of procurement, I've been the chief procurement officer in every town in which I've served. I have the accreditations from the state as a procurement officer. I just don't go into signing contracts without taking a good look at them, without examining them, without speaking as appropriate to legal counsel to staff members who may have better technical expertise than I do, particularly anything that has to do with highways or building facility sorts of projects. I don't believe that I've ever run afoul of anything in terms of procurement. Unfortunately, I haven't been involved in any major building projects. However, I was involved with a rather extensive tear down of an old elementary school, which ran into all sorts of issues that required to take a step back and to go through a bit more of a procurement process than we were aware of at the time. We opened up an old elementary school that was given to the town by the school department, decided that it wasn't worth saving, went through the initial stages of acquiring or putting out to bid for somebody to come in and tear the building down. And then very soon into the project, we realized that it was chock full of hazardous waste. It was basically a block of asbestos that they had carved a school out of. And if you've had those sorts of experiences, I'm sure you can understand that tearing a building down isn't very difficult. Remediating hazardous waste and going through those processes that cost 4 times the amount of taking the building down. But I went through that process successfully, and they took the building down, and it is currently the location that they are planning to build the new police station. So I've had plenty of those experiences. I'd like to build something. I've done roads, but I haven't encountered a building just yet.
Thanks, Bill.
Could you discuss a little bit about how your relationship might be with the Finance Committee? As you know, the Finance Committee in Hanson is appointed by the town moderator, and we try to stay in close contact with them on issues and expenditures and all that, but how would you work with that to communicate back to the board?
Well, I find Selectman Scott a good FinCom to be invaluable. Again, as I may have mentioned before, to the degree that it's appropriate, I rely upon professionals. I prefer to have, in that instance, somebody looking over my shoulder. There's nothing more important in a town than the structure of its budget, making sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. I enjoyed an extremely good, and enjoy one now in Rochester, but in past communities, relationship with the FinCom. They're generally professionals from the finance world or the business world, and they are it's a group on which I rely very heavily. The last thing I want to do is to go to a town meeting in Hanson and propose a budget and find there's some flaw in your $22 million budget. As a matter of fact, just as recently as probably about 4 or 5 hours ago, I had a conversation with the chairman of the FinCom in Rochester. We're having some difficulties I think you can appreciate this, having a regional school district here as well. We're having some difficulties in meeting the budget request of ORR, which is Old Rochester Regional. And that gentleman and I meet with the FinCom in Rochester on a weekly basis now that we're in the budget season. And the chairman of the FinCom, I talk with him at least on a daily basis. not only did I just speak with him on the phone not that long ago, but I met with him today around 10 o'clock as we try to pinch pennies and find what way we could possibly try to fund the request from the regional school. So actually in the town of Mansfield, when I was on the Board of Selectmen there, the Board of Selectmen appoints the Finance Committee in Mansfield as opposed to a lot of other places where the moderator does. I actually recruited easily 2/3 of that FinCom back when I was a selectman, because I found it so important to have good people on that board, and I actively went out and put the arm, as it were, on CPAs and business leaders that I had hoped would serve and proved to be very valuable in going through that particular budget, which at the time was about 60 million. So I relied very heavily on them, but not led by the nose either.
What is your impression of the current state of the town of Hanson's financial condition, and how would you go about stabilizing it or improving it if it's necessary?
Well, Selectman Mitchell, as I alluded to before, I would be interested in seeing whether or not there are any opportunities that surround the commuter rail station, whether or not there's any possibility of development to a higher use. And I certainly don't want to throw that out there to slight the current businesses that are there. That's certainly not my intent. However, having a commuter rail station is really, it's a gem in a sense. Again, we did what we could with ours in the town of Mansfield to include appropriate housing, appropriate businesses in the area, in that particular area. I would like to take a look to see if those sorts of opportunities, appropriate opportunities, exist here in Hanson. And obviously bringing a bit more business into town would alleviate the tax burden on the residents. I know that you have a single rate here, which I actually do support. I would have to look in particular how the finances are and what the balances are here in the town of Hanson. However, I also, when I was a member of the Board of Selectmen in Mansfield, I was seen as the person that leveled the tax rates in Mansfield, and actually to some people's chagrin. But I think that's one of the things that I would look at going forward, what opportunities exist on 14 or 27 or 58, and again, particularly at the commuter rail station. It's again, you can really make something good out of something like that if the town has the appetite for it, of course. There's plenty of money, there's not a lot of money coming out of the state anymore in terms of grants, but they still do support that sort of smart growth sort of initiative. So I think that at least in terms of planning, in terms of grant money and whatnot, I think that we could avail ourselves of what the state has to offer. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't make sense for the town of Hanson, we walk away from it. But I think that in terms of improving the financial position of the town of Hanson, it's really commercial at this point. It's trying to get more appropriate business in here that not only will add to the tax rolls, but won't take back in terms of services. I know that, again, I think you alluded to it in terms of the financial status of the town. I know that there is some difficulty being bandied about in terms of the regional school district looking for money that perhaps neither town can afford at this point. So the way to really try to alleviate that, again, I think, is to increase revenues that don't further burden the services of the town.
Can I ask a follow-up to that, since you brought it up? How do you feel about overrides as a method of balancing the budget?
I believe, sir, that is the last resort. The law allows us to do it. I think that in extreme circumstances, it can be warranted. I can safely say that I have never been party to, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, or as a town administrator, to an operational override. I have been party to some debt exclusions, which of course are two different animals. One's the gift that keeps on giving, the other one goes away depending upon the note. It's not something to arbitrarily be thrown out as an option, but it is the option of last resort, I believe. You really, and it has to be, because if you make the decision that that's the correct path to take for the town, you have to make pretty sure that when you're pitching that notion to the residents of town, you can say that we looked at every other option, that we've left no stone overturned or not overturned. It's something, again, I've avoided any sort of operational overrides, the need for such in any of my positions, but it's there for a reason, and when the sky is falling, it's something I think maybe you have to take a look at. I'm not necessarily sure that the sky is falling in Hanson. I know that it's not in Rochester, as we battle through our problems with, problems is the wrong word, our issues with the regional school, as in Rochester, as in Hanson, as in every town probably in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Your biggest driver of your budget is education. We have been, and I'm hopeful that we will work through our situation in Rochester without the need to even whisper that word at this point.
Could I do one more follow-up quick? Back to your commuter rail comments. I liked what you said. What would you do hypothetically if we had a large piece of commercial property in that area that was privately owned? And there's a lot of issues maybe with conservation in terms of maybe making sure that, you know, it's being done right and so forth. How would you facilitate that?
Well, not so much in the town of Avon. I'm sure you're all familiar with Avon. It's pretty well built out, and not a lot of concerns per se in terms of conservation. Not to say there aren't some, but the town of Hanson is much different in terms of, you know, all the bodies of water you have here, the lakes, the ponds, the rivers and the swamps and whatnot. A lot of those issues raised their head in Rochester, and as a matter of fact, what I was talking about previously in South Walpole, there was an overlay, a natural heritage overlay. There was a cedar swamp adjacent to some of the property, and I believe the protected species there was a form of moth, a cedar moth. In the town of Rochester, it seems like the particular species that comes up an awful lot is the eastern box turtle. And the people in the town of Rochester take these things quite seriously. They enjoy the rural nature of their community. They don't want to see things get, you know, too upset, but again, they're not necessarily opposed to appropriate development. I believe that, especially in terms of Rochester at this point, we've got a couple of projects, especially with CMAS. I don't want to go too far into it, but CMAS is the biggest taxpayer in the town of Rochester. Actually, Rochester probably wouldn't exist without CMAS, but they're looking to do some things, and in terms of some future work. And there again are those sorts of concerns, particularly around this particular species of turtle. And I have started working, it's preliminary, but I have started working with the Conservation Commission. They're very dedicated, very true to their calling or their tasking, to start working through those issues. I believe that people live in Hanson for a reason. They don't live in perhaps a different community. Perhaps they don't live in Weymouth or Avon or Stoughton, what have you. That there's certain aspects of this community that people wish to preserve. Again, I think in many instances, not all, but in many instances, you can find a middle ground where you can protect what makes Hanson unique and what makes Hanson the type of place people want to live. On the other hand, trying to augment the tax rolls, and it's not necessarily just augmenting the tax rolls. Economic development, there's many aspects to economic development that go beyond the fact we're going to get a few more dollars out of the business. There's the potential of good jobs. There's the potential of bringing people into the community that are going to spend money in the community. So I think that you have to weigh all those positives against, or I shouldn't say against, it seems too confrontational, But put those on the table with the potential negative impacts, the impacts on the environment. And again, and it circles back to a lot of the answers that I've given you today, this evening, I believe, that you bring all the parties to the table. You try to find the best solution that this side of the table may not agree 100% with it, and this side of the table may not agree 100% with it. But you try to work through something that everyone can live with at the end of the day, that is better for the town of Hanson, better for the people
Thank
of the
you.
town of Hanson.
The first part of my question, you probably answered most of it, but what efforts have you made to learn about the town of Hanson? But have you read the Town Administrator Act, and how can we, be grown better from that?
Well, I'm familiar with the Town Administrator Act. It grants certain authorities, actually more authorities than I believe I have in Rochester right now, I would have here in the town of Hanson. And these are the sorts of authorities that I would welcome in terms of moving forward with staffing and whatnot. I've always been very comfortable, I've always been very thorough in terms of hiring people, overseeing people. I would be very comfortable working with it. And in terms of, and I'm not sure if you kind of skipped over this in the beginning of the question, sir, but in terms of my knowledge of the town of Hanson, again, I'm not a resident. I'm not somebody who has grown up here. However, I might be the next best thing. My parents have been here for 20 years. I visit my parents on a very frequent basis. They live down the street and around the corner on Woodman Terrace. Oddly enough, we were on the pond, my son and I, looking for rainbow turtles? Turtles. My son, for some reason, is very interested in keeping turtles as pets now. So we spent time on the pond on a constant basis. I bring my children to swim at the pond right next to the camp. My father, he asked me questions about the town, and gee, there's an override, that you had an override question not that long ago in terms of building, I believe, a new elementary school. He asked me questions about that. He asked me questions about the roads. He sends me articles on a regular basis about what's going on in the town of Hanson. And in all honesty, if I were so lucky to get this position and the board was comfortable with me going forward, there's a very distinct possibility that when my parents, and they're thinking about moving down south to the Carolinas and whatnot, that I would actually take over the house down the street.
Yeah,
So,
nice move. There you go.
So, and actually, that'd probably happen regardless of whether you chose me or not.
Well, have you read the Administrative Act?
Yes.
I'm going to jump to the, so how do you, did you say Rochester has a regional school district?
Yes, it's
It does?
two other communities, Marion and
Is it
Mattapoisett.
pre-K through 12?
Is it?
They oversee, it's not combined, the regional district oversees the administration of the elementary schools, the separate elementary schools in all three towns. It's a combined middle, what we used to call junior high, middle and high school in Mattapoisett, where the two other towns go. Whereas there is more, there's the oversight of the regional district in terms of the elementary schools. We control a bit more of the budget in terms of the elementary schools, as you're well aware. Well, actually, it's an interesting dynamic in terms of having just two towns involved in a regional district, because when you have three towns and two towns vote in favor, it's similar to one of your vocational schools and whatnot. Majority votes in favor. The town that doesn't is sort of the odd man out.
What do you know of the municipal representative position? Do you know anything? It's a municipal representative. How do you view the level of importance of the position of the municipal representative of the Town of Hanson Regional School Committee?
I guess I'm not familiar with that term, I have to be
When
honest.
you have a pre-K through 12 district, the towns are allowed, the selectmen are allowed to be, to choose a member of their own body
Okay.
and be a,
Within negotiated
actually
contracts.
become a member of the school committee for all matters relating to collective bargaining.
Oh, sure, okay. It's actually, we called it something different. I'm familiar.
Some of them might call it regional rep. It's difficult. It is hard.
I'm
Some towns
familiar
call it.
with that particular position. Is it de facto? Do you have a vote, or are you
Yes.
just, okay? Because the other experiences I have had is the member of the Board of Selectmen, whether it was an internal district or whether it was a regional district, they were de facto. And whereas they could be at the table and offer comments at the end of the day, when the vote came down, they did not have voting privilege, which
You
I
actually
found...
get to vote on the contract.
I voted on the contract.
I found it kind of odd, actually, that a member of the Board of Selectmen would sit through those sorts of procedures and not be allowed to, in the end, weigh in on the decision. I think that's an important right, that's an important authority that this board has been given, and presumably the board in Whitman. Again, though, in all reality, I would imagine that it's a weighted vote. If it's one member of the Board of Selectmen, and you've got a majority, which you would need, obviously, a majority of the school committee chiming in or voting or making decisions on a contract or the CBA, that it's a somewhat muted voice. But nonetheless, it's a voice, and at least it's a vote.
Right.
Again, my experience has been that. And to the point, honestly, that in the town of Avon, the member that was chosen from the Board of Selectmen felt that, to be quite honest, he was wasting his time and didn't go to them anymore. But if you do actually have a vote, then,
Vote to the contract.
yeah, certainly.
In any of the, yeah. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
A quick question. We're down to the last 5 minutes. I'll try to make this quick. How do you, hypothetically, if you're asked by the Board of Selectmen to promote a particular project, it's going to probably end up being a debt exclusion question going to town meeting, and if it passes the debt exclusion, it ends up as a ballot question. How do you view your role as a town administrator in promoting that project and that question up and through the town meeting, and also what are the limitations that you see as a town administrator going forward into the ballot, promoting the ballot question?
Well, there obviously, Mr. Chairman, both upon myself and upon the Board of Selectmen, constraints in what one can do in terms of a political function. Were the Board of Selectmen to be supportive of a debt exclusion, and obviously I was going to say wanted me to be, but I would be, the point person for the Board of Selectmen. I would do my best to, in the way that I'm doing with the potential debt exclusion that we would need for this town hall in Rochester. I would do my best to get the information out there, to fend any questions, deal with any questions that people might have, try to allay any concerns, try to show the positive aspects of the debt exclusion.
How do you get the message out there?
I would hold public meetings, and they wouldn't necessarily need to be here in town hall. They could be at, if there's a retirement community, a 55 and older community that has a community center, a community room, we could bring it to them there. We could find any number of places in town to make it more convenient.
What are your thoughts on social media?
I have some experience with social media. I do use...
What are your thoughts about using that as a device?
I would use it in conjunction. I wouldn't use it solely. One needs to be a little careful about social media, I believe, because you can lose that person-to-person contact that I think an awful lot of people still want. They want to look at a person. They want to have the conversation. They want to see you. I would, and don't, I would not hide behind sending out a tweet or using Facebook or just solely relying on the internet, on our webpage. Not to say I wouldn't avail myself of those avenues, but I would make sure that it was just one part of getting whatever message we needed to get out, whether it was for a debt exclusion that we felt was warranted, or any other activity, any other project, any other initiative that the town, that the Board of Selectmen thought was important. I was not limiting myself to that.
Would you use it to do contract, to promote your contract with the town?
Quick answer.
For example, if your contract were coming up for renegotiation, would you post it to social media and say, hey, my contract's coming up, I'd appreciate your support?
No,
Or,
no, that's totally inappropriate. That's almost politicking.
thank you, Mike.
If I'm lucky enough to get the job, if I don't gain the support of the public, which then translates into the public giving you feedback, you five gentlemen feedback as to, gee, that Mike McHugh's doing a good job, then I probably shouldn't get an extension of my contract. And I feel that if I were to go around the back of the board and promote myself to try to get an extension or a new contract, first of all, I don't think it's ethical. Second of all, in a sense, I'm biting the hand that feeds me.
Thank you, Mike.
You had a quick question.
I hope it's a quick answer, quick question.
I'm trying to.
No, I'm not criticizing, don't get me wrong. Hanson, this is, we didn't ask the other candidate that, I apologize for that. I understand Rochester is a right-to-farm community?
Yes.
Okay, I understand the town of Carver and others. Hanson has reached out for that on at least one occasion with no success because of some issues. How might you advise the Ag Commission to move that forward? And, with just short, I know we're getting close to time.
Oh, I would sit and look at in all honesty, the town of Rochester had the right to farm prior to me getting there. However, I would avail myself of whatever procedure we went through several years ago to get that. The town of Carver, as you mentioned, West Bridgewater has a right to farm. There's many communities in the area that have the right to farm. I would be happy to try to spearhead that if the Board of Selectmen was in favor of it. It's sort of a silly side note is I actually, again, just within the last couple of days or so, received a confirmation that I got the town of Rochester to be named Tree City USA, which I actually have a soft spot in my heart for trees and agriculture and whatnot. I actually got Avon, which you wouldn't expect a town like Avon, where it's situated, to be named a tree city, but I started an Arbor Day celebration there that continues to this day, to the point that I actually, and now I'm getting on my soapbox, but to the point that I actually had some trees shipped to me from Hiroshima, which were saplings off a tree that survived the atomic bombing back in '45. And I actually plan on planting those. They're at the Arnold Arboretum right now. I got a dozen of them. And we're going to plant one eventually in Avon. I promised them I would. I've promised Rochester, regardless of what happens here this evening, that I would put one there. I just want to go into St. Hanson College where I went to school. I gave one to Tufts, I gave one to Yale, and the Arboretum's going to keep two of them. But to kind of come back to your question, Selectman Scott, I have those sorts of experiences in trying to bring in these initiatives that I think make a town feel good about themselves. I think that agriculture, where it's not a main driver, I don't think in the town of Hanson, does play a role in the town of Hanson, and I would be happy to undertake that.
Thank you. Do you have a quick question?
No.
Okay. Since we're almost out of time, I'd ask you to do a summary.
Well, first, do you have any questions for us?
Oh, you have any questions for us?
Not so much, Mr. Chairman, other than I would ask what the board's procedure or its timeline going forward might be.
Timeline going forward is we're going to try to pick two candidates, final candidates tonight, and then pending a background check and further reference checks, we'll make the final decision a week from today.
Very good, very good. That's moving forward quite quickly. I appreciate
So
that.
I'll give you the chance now to make a summary and convince the board why you feel you're the best candidate.
I didn't already? Well, I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman and gentlemen. I appreciate the time here. Just to get this far into the process, I'm very thankful for that. I do believe that I would be a very good town administrator. I'd be actually an excellent town administrator for the town of Hanson. I believe that I bring a plethora of experience after the last 12 years since I last sat here and spoke to. I don't believe any of you gentlemen were on the board back then. But in that time, were you? I don't remember.
You might have been, no.
No, I was,
That was
I'm kidding,
2003, 2004.
in my second childhood, yeah.
But again, there is a very distinct possibility that in the next several years or so, I will be a resident of the town of Hanson. So I know the town pretty well. I don't want to say I don't like the back of my hand, but I know it fairly well. This would be a step up in terms of the size of the town, the size of the budget, certainly the size of the Board of Selectmen, that I'm ready to undertake. I really would look forward to being your choice and spending hopefully the rest of my career here.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I'm just going to take a brief break, and I'll send the other candidate in very well up there. Okay. And our next candidate for the position of town administrator is Mr. Chana Hurd of Lakeville. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for having
And
me.
the board here, I'll introduce the board from left to right.
Don Howard,
Jim McGann.
Bruce Young.
Bill Scott.
Kenny Mitchell.
Okay. Before we get into the questioning, it'll be like a round robin type of questioning, move from one selected to the other. You got about 45 minutes, more or less,
Okay.
and depending on how long the questions are. But first, we'd like to get tell us a little bit about your background, your experience in town government, and other activities that make you qualified for the office, and why you think you're the best candidate for the job.
All right, can do.
Yeah.
Quick question?
Yes.
Are we filming tonight? Do I get to watch this later on YouTube? Or?
Yeah, it'll.
Yeah, really? Oh, cool. Awesome. All right, well, it's, I guess, first of all, a thank you to Mr. McCormick and his group for promoting me to this level. It was a great first interview. Got really excited about potential this town has in terms of what I think I can offer. And so I'm thrilled that you guys have me here tonight. I'm very, very excited to be here. Experientially, I have a varied background. I started in higher education and did very well moving up through the ranks at Boston University, which was my first job. And one of the things you'll notice in my resume is that I tend to stay with things for a very long time. And that's just the way that I work. And from there, I really got a lot of management experience. By the time I left, my staff was about 120 people. I was responsible for a whole bunch of different departments. It's actually a great parallel for town management. I went from there to Curry College and was part of the senior staff at Curry College, in charge also of the institutional advancement and development areas, but was part of visioning and strategic planning for the college, and that really gave me a good sense on how that is done. It gave me, that stayed with me, of course, everything has. I went, right about the time I was moving on from Curry, I wanted to start my own business, because I've done a fair amount of grant writing, I've done a fair amount of small business and small institution advancement, and thought, okay, hey, I could do this on my own, it sounds cool. And right about that time, I'd already been involved at a board committee level with the town of Lakeville, and had tried twice before to see if I could get out of the Board of Selectmen. So right about the time I moved on from Curry, I actually did manage to get elected to the Board of Selectmen, and I think that might have been a little bit of a thorn in the side of my fledgling business that I was trying to start. I did do that for a number of years, and it did okay, but it really didn't grow to the level of financial stability that I was looking for in order to be comfortable. I'm going to come back to the town of Lakeville last because that's the most important part, but just moving right on. I went into small business development with some friends of mine. One was a childhood friend who said, you know, hey, as long as you're between years, I had just run for state senate and had my hat handed to me. And so my friend came and said, you're looking for the next thing to do, aren't you? I said, yeah. I said, well, come with us. And I worked with them. We took a business that was doing about $200,000 of sales a year, and this year we're projected to go between $4 and $5 million a year. It was a local product. It's an organic fertilizer made out of fish, actually. It was being sold locally, and now we're sold in every state in the country. We're sold in over a dozen countries around the world. And it's done really good. Pat myself on the back, pat my friends on the back. We did a great job. We tried a couple satellite businesses along the way that maybe were not that successful. But from that, I got a lot more management experience. I got a lot of business development experience, which I think is actually very important for the position you're trying to fill. And the collaterally, while all this was going on, I've served a number of terms on Lakeville's Board of Selectmen. And really cut my town management teeth in that position, because Lakeville, when I came into it, was kind of backwoods in how everything had been done. They'd never really had anybody foster a professional approach to town management. There were all these little fiefdoms, you know. We had the Board of Health over here, the Board of Selectmen over here, the ZBA over here, but nobody's going to those meetings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And everybody sort of operated in their own vacuum. And that's actually one of the reasons I ran, because there's a whole lot of potential in the town, and I thought it was being undertapped, very undertapped. And back in those days, because everybody was sort of off in their own little cloistered closet, there was not a lot of staff support or not a lot of anything else. And there's not a lot of expectation. And so while my resume doesn't say town administrator on it, back in the day, especially those earlier years, it functionally was a boots on the ground, do it all position. And I really got my feet wet doing that. And over time, built, and then I got partway down the road, I got a good partner, you know him, who's currently your regional town administrator. Rich eventually came on board and helped me out. And we really took the town, managerial-wise, into the 21st century from, say, the 19th, which is kind of where it was. It was just an old school style of doing business. And changed the way everybody thought. Raised the level of expectation, started to bring different departments, committees, boards together to actually collaborate on projects. And when we got, I actually wrote the, it's interesting thing, I wrote the first town administrator draft to be passed by the legislature. And when I read yours, Mr. Young, I went, this is pretty good. I went back and read mine, I was like, that's not so good. And we can come back to that later, but there's some interesting twists in Hanson's version that I like. But but we started to do forward looking. It's like the town has listened to us for a couple of years now. They're ready to accept professional management. And then we really started visioning. We started looking at growth and growth management, which is a huge thing for me. We started looking at how to use open space to actually protect the quality of your town and the areas that you regard as precious, but actually use that as a way to save money, enhance the budget, because you're paying less for certain land uses than you are for others, obviously. We'll go more into that too. And all of these pieces, complex, but they all started to come together, and we did incredibly well. I'm proud to say that people still talk about that board that we were on for 10 years or 9 years, whatever it was. And people never stop asking, when are you coming back? And so I'll wrap this part up, because I'd really rather get to your questions. But I am coming back. I hope it's here, because I spent the last few weeks really getting to know more about your town and had this wonderful reawakening. I knew I wanted to go back into town management. I'd love to go on the administrative side. And doing my due diligence, learning more about going through your master plan, your open space plan, doing my drive arounds in town, came in, met a few people in one afternoon. But also, like, you know, checking into codes and statutes and see like, how much has changed, how much have I forgotten, how much tweaking do I need. Just the old feeling started to wake up. And I became more convinced than ever that coming back into town management at some level, it would be great if it was here, is my next thing. And I'm ready to do it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Don, your first question?
Yeah, you probably answered some of this.
Yeah.
What do you see as your role as town administrator?
No, I can amplify it. A whole bunch of different things. Obviously, it's support for this board. That's first and foremost. But coming right behind that is there are so many integral day-to-day pieces. Budgeting is absolutely huge. It's the lifeblood of the town. All right. But, and then you have, as defined by the statute, you have all the other expectations, dealing with the chairman with the legal, procurement, personnel, management, probably gonna miss a few from the list. But all the basic day-to-day functions, those are kind of an expectation, and that's all accepted. But beyond that, especially as I start to get more comfortable, I'll be looking out. One of the things I like to do is, I said this in the initial interview, I'll end up meeting everybody. I'm gonna wind up being the unexpected regular at all kinds of different board and committee meetings. Because the way I see it, I had talked about when I first came into Lakeville was kind of a bunch of separate fiefdoms. And one of the ways you achieve unification and hence greater efficiency and productivity is by bringing everybody together. And one of the ways that you do that is A, by knowing, but B, by in presence. I'll give you an example. It's like back in the old days in Lakeville, I'd be going to different meetings. You know, I'd see a problem with the planning board. And I would talk to the planning board chairman about it. I said, well, I'm going to the ZBA on almost the same issue on Thursday. Why don't you come along? It's that simple. People started to integrate just because you have the cross exposure. And my vision on how a town is run is that when you finally take it to the place where it's supposed to be, you have a bunch of individual parts working as a unified whole, not as autonomous pieces.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that's another piece. And if I can continue for 1 second, as I go along and start to have more available time, once I really get my handle on the position, I want to think about things that I'm very, very good at, that I do very well at, that I actually got awards for in my time, which is growth management, which is land use planning, which is thinking about how you creatively use open space. And in my drive runs, there's some clunky zoning going on. And you can see, all due respect, you can see and I hope it's not really your fault, but you can see some of the side effects of that and the way it plays out. And then there are areas, I hope we come back to this, because I don't want to take too long on one question, where there's clearly need. Like down in South Hanson, you got all kinds of opportunity right next to the railroad station. But I'm sure that's going to come back up, so.
All right, thank you.
Jim?
So how do you handle conflict between subordinates amongst themselves, peers, and board members, either with you or between, what's your style like?
It's an interesting question. One of the things that I'm really good at is bringing people and concepts together, and where they may not initially have any relation to each other or even see what the causal connection between them might be.
Mm-hmm.
So where there is conflict, I'm gonna start by listening, and then I go into a thinking phase, and then I go into a talking phase. Usually conflict, in my experience, is really just people seeing the same thing a different way. And it's part of my style in management is, well, I look at everybody individually. Like, I don't have a global management style because, for instance, some people are very needy. They want, just by nature, it's not a bad thing, they want a pat on the back, they want to feel affirmation. And some people feel better when you leave them alone, like if you're sticking your nose too much into it, it's like, well, why are you on my case? What am I doing wrong? That by way of saying that in the scenario you described, where there is conflict, whether it's between two board members or whether it's between staff or staff and a board member, it's inclusionary conversation. But that starts with hearing what the other side has to say first. I'm not the kind of person who's going to go, no, you're both wrong, shut up.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Let me expand on the town manager issue, town administrator issue. And you answered part of this. But how do you see the most, in your review of the Town Administrator Act, what do you see as the most important aspects of the authority granted to the town administrator? And what do you understand as the most important limitations of the office from the Town Administrator Act?
So that's almost a direct reference to the legislative.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, as I stated previously, first and foremost, town administrator answers to the board of selectmen. Town administrator, just as an aside too, I had a wonderful opportunity to learn something that most people don't get to learn, because like I was saying in my opening remarks, I was the boots on the ground guy. I was also the decision maker. So I got the opportunity to do what most people don't, which is I got to be the one doing all the backup, all the legwork, all the phone calls, all the submittals, and I also got to be the guy taking those pieces and going, yeah, that's good, that's fine. That by way of saying that I understand exactly what this position is supposed to be, and I understand this position reports to the board. Beyond that, I also understand that the town administrator has a voice, but not a vote, which seems to me to flow naturally from that hierarchical arrangement. What I referred to earlier, Mr. Young, that comes out of your legislative piece is you guys did something great that I did not, because I was still young and didn't even think about it. Which is that there's an obvious reporting relationship between officials or town positions that are appointed directly to the board. That's very straightforward. That's very easy to manage. That I had in Lakefield's version all those years ago. What you guys have done very nicely is insert the word cooperation as kind of a cover umbrella with other with the appointees or hires of other elected boards that don't necessarily answer to the Board of Selectmen. And you've created a very interesting symbiosis almost between, it doesn't mandate that those people will somehow report through the town administrator, but it sets up a paradigm for why it's incumbent upon the town administrator to build cooperation with them, which I think is fascinating. I'm wondering, has it worked in the past?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay. I'm not uncomfortable with it anyway, because as I said before, one of the things, I'm really good at building relationships, and I think that's what brings people together, and I think that's how what makes things work, so. Did I answer your question?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Bill?
Yes, all your departments have to have the authority to do their jobs. How would you build a system of accountability to go along with that as the town administrator?
Well, amongst other things, we'll be involved in annual reviews. And I've done lots of annual reviews in the course of my, for the colleges that I was at, for the town of Lakeville when I was in the management position there. I believe that reviews are very, very critical. You set a level of expectation. And if the expectation isn't met, that isn't necessarily cause for disaster, but it's cause for course correction. So I'm not shy about that at all. But beyond that, I think management style comes back into this. I have a preference for excellence and try to achieve that in what I do. It tends to be a little bit contagious. If you're honest and open with people and you let them know, that's not exactly what we were hoping for here. We were hoping for a slightly higher standard, or we're hoping for this last week, or whatever the tweak or the case may be. And it doesn't have to be a beat them down situation. If you're honest with them from the get-go, and you communicate clearly what your expectations were, and also the reverse is true. If those expectations are met, be vocal about that as well. Where was I going with this answer? Got all excited, and then I can't remember what was the original question was.
Or just how you would have a system of accountability for those. I mean, they do have, as I said, the authority to do their job. That is a big part of it.
Yes.
But also there's an accountability aspect that would be applied to it. I think you basically answered what I had asked.
In review, yeah, I think I did.
Kenny?
Discuss the situation in which there was opposition to a project or plan and how you would deal with it. Can you make that any more concrete, or is would that be a plan of the Board of Selectmen? Or say a new school or some type of project where there's a lot of opposition from taxpayers? This sounds like such a cop-out answer, but by consideration, by inclusion, the people. Again, I think I might have already said this. In my experience, a lot of times people aren't going to see eye to eye. And one of the things that I will do is sometimes there's a better plan. Sometimes maybe you get caught up in it and you're more bought in than you should be, and there might actually be value to what the opposition is saying. I believe in almost every scenario there's ways to bring people together
as long as that you talk it out. And there may be some validity to the opposition side, as you described it, but there may also be some validity to your own. And I don't think anything's black and white. I think everything's cast in some level of gray, and it's really just finding the space that makes it work. And also, I find too that and this is just an old, it's not even a trick, it's just a management style, by listening and hearing suggestions and then maybe eliciting suggestions that tweak slightly your way, you engender buy-in. So that's, I think I said it in my cover letter, I'm really pretty good at this, and as a result, I've gotten used to expecting success in situations like that, and come to rely on it.
Okay, thank you.
Don?
Yeah, how would you notify the board of an activity that came up in between meetings? You know what I mean? We meet twice a month. In between that, somebody came in to talk to you. They wanted to have an activity. How would you go about that?
You mean you wanted to schedule something?
Just schedule something, an activity.
That was not, that was gonna come up.
There wasn't
prior to
on
your
the
next
agenda
meeting?
the previous before.
Yeah.
There was an emergency.
Well, a number of things. I mean, first and foremost, take it to the board chair for some kind of recommendation or advice on how to proceed. It would really depend on what the activity was to a
Yeah,
certain
definitely.
degree. I'm a stickler for the rules, and I'm very cautious about communication that can lead towards any form of deliberation. That does not happen in an open session. So I would be very cautious about soliciting opinion. It's one thing if we're gonna send you all a report. Here it is, so you all get to see it before your next meeting. It's another thing if someone's looking for a decision. I'm not comfortable establishing a line of communication where a decision is made, or even individual opinions are polled about a decision that's not in posted session.
Thank you.
Jim?
I'm going to skip the next question I have. You've already answered several times. It says explain teamwork concept and how you work to encourage cooperation. You've gone over that a number of times, so I'm not going to ask it again. What I will do,
I'm good at it.
well, I am paying attention. So the question I do have is, do you have any regional school experience? Any experience with regional school districts?
Tons.
Okay.
Tons. I'll go with that for a second. And I don't know if you guys call any references. If you do, call Dennis Flynn, who was superintendent of schools. The entire town was involved there, and he'll basically tell you that I walk on water. Yeah, I have tons of regional schools. But what I really like is you guys are so parallel to Lakeville in so many different ways. That's part of what's appealing to me. Is this all feels like putting back on your favorite pair of blue jeans or something. It feels completely natural. The regional schools, worked with them nonstop. Both in terms of annual, on budget-related issues, program development, and then also in terms of what we're proud of, because we took advantage of the times, and we kept our eye on what was going on in funding. And at the time, the SBAB funding was a great situation, and we capitalized it. We built a brand new school, rehabbed the entire school, and then basically gutted a school and did a practically brand new rebuild. All of it for $56 million.
What do you know about municipal representatives of the town, the regional school committee? Do you know what? I think it's under.
Only what I know from watching your board meeting, Mr. McGann. I was as surprised as you were. I was never, when I was in your position, called on to go rep the town in the union contract negotiation.
Yes, sir.
That was a complete surprise.
It was. I actually had to look up what the role was, and it was kind of difficult to get the definition of what that role was to a point, but that's good. So,
Honestly, just as an aside, it would seem to me logically that if you were called upon to be a signer,
yeah.
then you should have also been called upon when the negotiation started, because that's just the way I see how these things work.
Rich was good enough to at least give me the direction of where to go for the role, and he pointed it out to me in that DESC. Thank you. I have nothing for, I'm gonna ask one more, okay? So I was going through your resume, and can you tell me what grants you may have written in the past, or have you have grant experience, and if you have, which ones were successful and maybe which ones were not?
I'm really gonna have to scratch my head on that.
Okay.
I've written tons. Of
You
this.
have?
Yeah.
Well, give me your most
Both-
successful.
Both for education, probably Title III, I think it was, for Curry College, which was a monster piece, 300 pages long.
Okay.
But was involved in, I'm trying to remember which ones I did for the town, and I'm drawing a total blank right now. But I know it was a bunch, but nothing is jumping off the,
If it comes back to you, offer.
yeah, definitely, I will, sorry.
Thank you. No worries.
One of your, couple of your important duties as town administrator is defined by the Town Administrator Act as you're the chief negotiator for all collective bargaining issues, and you're also the procurement officer. Can you give us a summary of your experience in those particular positions?
Absolutely. The contract bargaining, more than my fair share. I actually had a bargaining unit clerical staff underneath you, but then that's not as relevant to this as the way Lakeville worked. Back in the day, we only had 2 unions. We had police and fire. That was it. We subsequently have more now, but we didn't then. Those were 3-year contracts, and we were a 3-member board, and we rotated the chairmanship. So the chairman led contract negotiations every 3 years. So bad math, it just worked out that I was the chair every time the contract came up for renegotiation. So I've had a lot of contract negotiating experience. And that's, it's all good. We had a funny question about that, I mean.
I'm out now.
The procurement, I was casually exposed to. And I'll tell you, quite honestly, have I directly run the procurement? No, I have not. Do I know everything about it? Mostly, not completely, but it had to come before us and through us, so I know exactly how it works. I understand when just good business practices is enough, when you need like you 3 seal bids, or when you actually have to require postings, whether it's a central register, or it's combis, or it's as simple as a local paper or your bulletin board. And honestly, I'm not worried about that one. That's a very straightforward functional duty that I've seen it, I've been involved in it, I just haven't run it, but you can pick it up on the fly, and the state makes it very easy for you because the IG's office puts out basically the chart, which says here are your levels for different categories of, whether it works or building design, purchase of goods and services. And within each one of those, they spell out the different levels and what the requirements are. So as long as you got the chart, they also issue a monster manual if you get into a problem area. It's called the Chapter 30B manual, as a matter of fact. Very clever title. Yeah, it's a biggie. But, and I've been through it, and so anytime you get stuck, your answers are there. But I won't claim to have run a procurement operation, but I know exactly what it is, and I'm not the slightest bit intimidated, because that's really just a functional duty. It's very easy to stay on top of.
Bill?
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but the Board of Selectmen does not appoint the Finance Committee in the town of Hanson. The town moderator does, which is okay, but how would you establish relationship between the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, I guess, as town administrator?
It's an excellent question. A number of ways. Can I ask a quick question first?
Sure.
Does the Board of Selectmen make recommendations to the moderator on the Finance Committee members?
No.
No, really?
No. He's got, when they first established the Finance Committee back in the 1930s, of course, you had the option to elect it.
Yeah.
Selectmen could appoint it, or it could be a combination. And the moderator appoints all 7 members.
I did see in your annual or special town meeting minutes that a reference was made to that. And I was surprised. So I was quite actually wondering the next level, do you have a sphere of influence at all? And that's interesting. I mean, obviously, I want to build a good relationship with the moderator. That's pretty straightforward. But also, one of the things I definitely want to do is I want to enhance your financial management team. I think, as I said, budget is the lifeblood of the town, and I think it's absolutely critical. And so one of the things, Mr. Mitchell, that I want to do is, you know, I'm thinking the treasurer collector, the accountant, obviously, a rep from the assessors, the chairman of the board of selectmen. I would love to be able to talk to superintendent of schools and get involved, because there's such a big piece of the budget. And I think that would be a great vehicle for starting to ease some of the natural budget tension that exists between the town and the school. So it's not a bad thing, and you're not atypical, it happens everywhere, but it does because, you know, like you are this year, we're on a different page, right? You guys have a vision of what the budget is. They have a vision of how much more they're gonna need to go over it to make the student success program work, right? Those two don't quite meet. So I'd love to include, was it Dr. Gilbert Whitner in that, if I can, even if it's only part of the time. And then I'd also love to include an active member of the finance committee. My experience with finance committees are sometimes you have members that do a whole lot, and sometimes you have members that do not so much. Oh, it's sign off on the budget time, okay, I guess we'll go to a meeting. But I'd like to involve either the chair of the finance committee or a very active member of the finance committee, because what I want to do is, I want this group, this financial management team, to meet once a month on a regular basis. There's a whole lot of things that over the course of the year, there's required submissions, as you know, from different departments that are all represented in the group I just described, that go on throughout the year. And there's a lot of cross-department work that happens with that. And then it's just healthier for all the players involved have a pre-stated coming together time. Like say it's the first Monday of the month in the afternoon, I don't know, whatever. But then, you know, you can look at the treasurer's cash flow budget and see where you are. You know, you can get, the town administrator works with the town accountant to get some revenue and expense projections. You look at, I also want to build, I don't know if you have one or not, Mass DOR, I know I'm giving you a long-winded answer, but it's all going to come back around. Mass DOR puts out a municipal calendar every year, which gives you all your submission deadlines. That's great because you no longer have to keep them all in your head. But I want to tailor that specifically to Hanson, but then as part of that monthly meeting, that's another thing you look at is what are the upcoming submissions, where are we in our state of readiness for this, you know, as you get towards the end of the summer, how's the tax recap sheet looking and all the sorts of paperwork that goes with it. And if all players are on the same page, and I think I covered them all, I think you eliminate the risk of anything ever falling through the cracks, coming in late, and you get to basically do pre-anticipation on what your expenses and revenues are on an ongoing basis throughout the year, which means that you're just less likely to hit snags. Long-winded answer, I think it's critical to include a member of the finance committee in that. And I would petition them for that reason, and I would be shocked if they just said, no, we don't think that applies to us, because it does.
Well, that was your question, right?
Yeah, that's fine, he did answer it.
Yeah. And
Yeah, and he answered mine too in there. I was gonna ask him about the financial state of the town of Hanson, where it was going, so
Ask another one.
we thought maybe he knew that question.
you want another one?
He's covered a lot of the stuff. Municipal finance. How are your computer skills? How would you rate your strength of your computer skills?
What was it, you actually taught myself to do mainframe programming. They're not at that level anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Mainframe?
Well, that's how we kept their data, it was a big mainframe, it was a big computer, so.
Mainframe, yeah.
Yeah.
I learned self-taught language called BASIC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
A long time ago now.
yeah.
My computer skills, Mr. Mitchell, are adequate. Like, got all the basics. Can do Word, can do Excel, I'm fluent pretty much in anything that you would expect. I need to learn more about SoftWrite, because I've seen it and touched it, but haven't really used it on a production level basis, but I'm very fascinated with it. I'm just not gonna design the next
Yeah.
level of chip, okay?
Second question, can you speak Chinese?
Actually, I studied in China.
That's
And
right.
every single word of Chinese is pretty much gone from my vocabulary at this point. Could I speak it then? No, but I can survive.
Good, excellent, thank you.
Don?
Yeah, what have you, what efforts have you made to learn about the town of Hanson, which I've heard that you
Oh,
you
yeah.
have? but have you read the Town Administrators Act?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And how could we govern better?
How quickly what?
How can we govern better using the act?
From what you know.
Well, it's interesting, because like I referred to before, the clever use of the word cooperation, I think is really gonna come into play. And I got the impression that sometimes that's working now, sometimes it's not. And I think just a function of my management style, and what I was talking about is being at everybody else's gig and being involved in everybody else's thing, is gonna also help other people just come together. Once you build a relationship, two people are more naturally gonna trust you, more naturally gonna include you, more naturally gonna be a part of what you're doing or what you need also. It's inclusion. Especially since you can't mandate it, it has to be inclusion.
Right, I know, communication is one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, John, I mean, hypothetical question. Two members of the Board of Selectmen approach you and ask you to do all you can to support and promote a multi-million-dollar town project, which calls for the approval of a debt exclusion at town meeting and the subsequent ballot question to appear on the ballot. They ask you to set up a town social media page expressly for that purpose and to limit public input to just those who have positive comments on the project. How do you respond to that?
There's an awful lot wrong with that. Well, first of all, if two members of the board come and ask me to do that, that's not a directive from the Board of Selectmen, that's a directive from two individuals, and I cannot show that kind of favoritism. When you study a couple of social media site that restricts public response, you're basically creating an advertisement that people can be overwhelmed by but not react to, so that part doesn't work either. I think there was something in the middle as well, too, that gave me pause, but no, there's not much, Mr. Leanne, in that situation I'm comfortable with. But
Excellent. What are your thoughts on social media posting, like if you had to post, what are your thoughts about posting your contract? Say your contract was coming up for negotiation and you posted your contract onto a social media site to look for support from the townspeople.
I think that's actually inherently wrong as well. I do want to ask a question though, because I've watched a bunch of your meetings now at this point. There seemed to be a...
He already knows where you're going, Jim.
Well, you already...
What happened? I guess my question is, what did happen? I mean, you seem to have a specific reference.
We're interviewing you now, right?
We're supposed to ask the questions.
Now you know what happened, right?
Okay.
So the last thing I know is that, do you know what the, I'm gonna ask you, this is a tough one. It seems like you've done your homework, though. What's our approximate budget number, do you know? Town Hanson?
For the town?
Yeah.
About 22 million.
There you go. Thank you.
Give or take, and it's a moving target. because
Yep, nope, that's a good
state just added
approximate, right there.
$50,000 and- but-
We're coming down the last few minutes, aren't we, Mary?
We're at the last few.
Okay, so, I haven't asked this question before, but you mentioned the developing down by the railroad station. Are you at all familiar with the Plymouth County Hospital site at all?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
what would be your,
No, I went pretty much everywhere on my drive arounds, and somehow I missed the middle school and then I ran out of time, so that's, but pretty much else name it, I've been there. But yeah, I did go down to the Lakeville, Plymouth County Hospital site. See, Lakeville's got its own hospital issue too, but, and I guess without mincing words, my goodness, what a disaster. I did drive all the way down to the big building, and I don't know if you guys have actually gotten past estimates on demolition and remediation. But just from first blush, I can tell you it's going to be very, very expensive. Probably more even than anybody is guessing. There's a lot of potential down there. My counsel would be to go slowly on this, simply because.
Was 20 years slow enough?
Is it 20? I thought it was 16 or something.
16.
Yeah. 17, actually. 99, I believe, took possession. Now they could 17. So no, 20 years sounds just about perfect.
Right. Round up.
I think there's I again saw some of your discussions. I think there are possibilities. I I understand that you're considering putting referendum questions on different ways to look at remediation, building and possible contamination. And I guess my counsel would be to go slowly, because there may be solutions that are very pragmatic and practical, that, as a for instance, if you use CPC money, you might already be limiting yourself in some ways as to what you can do with property down the road. You're in an ETA, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it has something to do with Old Colony, and there's like 7 or 8 towns in it with you, and that qualifies you for consideration for an EOA, which is an economic opportunity area, which opens the door to all kinds of brownfield grants and loans, and low interest and zero interest revolving loans, both at the state level through mass development, I'm sure you're familiar with them, DEP, DCD, who else? Wonka, there's more, but on the federal level, EPA, HUD, there's all kinds of brownfield remediation monies available if you get the right classification first. So again, a reason to go slowly. But if you rush into it, you come up with a solution for taking the building down, and I don't think anybody would disagree with you. That's all got to come down. That's a major, major cleanup project. But there are many ways to approach it, and my only counsel would be, don't move so quickly that you close some of those doors.
Okay, interesting. Anybody else have any questions for him?
No.
Do you have any? Okay. The way we were going to proceed on this is we're going to try to come out with 2 candidates tonight, and then pending reference checks and background checks, we're going to make the final decision next Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay. And with that, I'd give you an opportunity to give us a summary of why you feel you're the best candidate for the position of town administrator.
Okay, just clarification. Are you just going to decide next week, or are you coming back in for one more interview?
We have one more interview tonight.
No, I meant next week.
No, he means next
Oh,
week.
next
I
week.
think he
We'll have
meant,
2 more interviews. Oh, we just did a pick.
I thought you were gonna do the pick.
No, you're gonna
We
pick,
don't need to interview me.
We're going to try to pick.
we're gonna try to
Pick
pick
the
this.
position by next week. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, I think I've covered a lot of the reasons. This is my closing statement, right?
Yeah.
I've covered a lot of the reasons why I think I would be your best candidate. And I have all the same skills that you'd expect in a candidate for this position, but I also have some external perspectives from having worked in small business development, from having worked in other venues, that are really, they don't change my perspective on this, but they augment it. And I think, like I said, here's an example. I'm the rare candidate that got to be both the decision maker and the boots on the ground at the same time. Okay, so I can offer you a broader perspective, I think, than a typical town administrator candidate would. That said, I can also offer you something else too. I can offer you some constancy in this position. I don't think anybody would deny there's kind of been a revolving door on town administrators here. And that's not destructive necessarily, but it makes things more difficult for you, for the town itself. And then you've got a lot of long-term employees who seem to be doing excellent jobs, who keep having their world turned upside down. It's hard to bring everybody together when that central binding force, which I see as a town administrator, just keeps changing. Everybody's got to start from square one. You got to learn a new management style. You got to rebuild trust. You got to relearn self-reliance, or like for the first time because it's a new person. And I think I just want to say, so you guys know this, I'm not interested in hopping from town to town to get a salary bump. Okay, there seems to be a lot of that in this industry. Because what I want to do is what I did before. I'm really dying to get back into this, but I got better and better the longer I was doing it. And that isn't because of what I was doing, it's because I was doing it in the same place. And I see the value in that. And I see the value in that to the town. And so I like to offer my assurance that I don't have a short-term plan where I'm going to move 3 towns over 2 years down the road.
Okay.
I think to do myself a favor, I stay as long as I can.
Thank you.
Good. Is there anything else you guys want? Well, again, then, I just want to say I'm totally psyched to be included in this process. I've really, really enjoyed learning what I've learned so far. And I'd love to be doing this if I get the chance.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Okay, Mr. Scott?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, sir, good to see you again.
Nice to meet you.
Mr. McGann? Yes, done. All right. Gentlemen, good evening.
Bruce, you gonna get the next candidate?
Everyone else goes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wait a minute. Johnny's go.
They were calling me Bob last week. It's fine.
Okay, we're back in session, and I'd like to introduce our final candidate here this evening for the position of Hanson Town Administrator, Sarah Amaral Smith of East Bridgewater, and currently employed as the business manager for the West Bridgewater School District.
Correct.
And we're going to use a round robin type of a question format as we did with the same type as when we dealt with the search committee. And what we hope to do tonight is narrow the field from 4 down to 2,
Okay.
and then try to make a selection by the final selection next Tuesday night, pending a further background check and reference check this week. And then we'll be voting next week as to who our actual favorite candidate was. How's that?
Great.
Okay. And with that, we'd like you to first summarize your experience in town and school government and all your background experience that you feel makes you qualified to be the next town administrator in the town of Hanson.
Sure. For the last 8 years, I've been with the West Bridgewater School Department as the business manager. Not only, for the West Bridgewater School Department, I have been managing, right now it's about a $13 million budget. So budgeting-wise, I have a pretty good background with that. As far as municipal townwide, we collaborate very well in West Bridgewater. So we just finished, I'm just finishing a $63 million middle senior high school project. So we collaborated. Our school building committee actually comprises of the police department, fire department, ADA committee, a lot of the departments in the town. So we collaborated, and the town administrators. 8 years of municipal experience. Budget-wise, I'm that. I'm also the MCPPO, the Mass Certified Public Purchasing Officer. The town administrator is actually the designate, and he designates responsibilities to different departments, so I actually do the school department, but we collaborate on a couple projects. The West Bridgewater is about the same size as the town of Hanson. The demographics are similar. I'm very familiar with a lot of the Mass General laws. So really, overall, that's my 8 years of West Bridgewater. We're actually on our third Mass School Building Authority project right now that I've been there. We've also done 3 teacher union negotiations, which is always interesting. We're in one right now, which is becoming fun. I've covered budgeting and procurement, human resource. We do now teacher evaluations. So that is actually quite extensive. On the town side, it's usually just a yearly evaluation, but on the school side, they have to do 3 goals. 2 have to go to student achievement, 1 is a professional practice goal. So we, very extensive evaluations. They're not just, how are you doing this year? So really good evaluation system there.
We'll start the questioning with, I'll introduce the members.
Don Howard.
Jim McGann.
Bruce Young.
Bill Scott.
Kenny Mitchell.
And we'll start with Mr. Howard on, go from left to right.
Sarah, what do you see as your role as town administrator?
A lot of those things I just covered. A lot of human resource, negotiations, procurement, budget obviously is a huge part. And really facilitating your visions and goals for the town. I mean, the residents elected you. I just want to make sure that we fulfill what you want to do legally, ethically, and just make the town better that way. Also, open door policy for me personally. It's, people will have complaints and issues, and I want them to come and air out their problems,
Right.
and to make sure that you're informed of what has been brought to me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jim?
So, Sarah, how would you handle conflict between subordinates, peers, and board members, either amongst themselves or maybe with yourself? What's your style?
My style is to listen to all sides. Really just try to, depending on the situation, it's hard to be broad with it, but really to listen to all sides, not take it personally. Really just try to go with the facts and hopefully come to a compromise between everyone, but really just keeping personality out of it. And it is a municipality, but it's a business. You need to keep it professional and fair.
Respectful.
Exactly.
Okay. Sarah, how familiar are you with the Hanson Town Administrator Act, and what do you view as the most important aspects of the authority granted under the town administrator position in Hanson, and what do you understand to be the most important limitations of the office?
I believe that's chapter 41. I'm familiar with it. I actually have it in my binder. So I understand the role of the town administrator. The hardest part, I think, is maybe the perception of it. The town administrator does not run the town. It's what you guys do. I'm just here to facilitate. The biggest limitation, well, it is a 5-board member. And I am used to that in West Bridgewater. We have 5 school committee members. But I think that if I had a recommendation and perhaps you didn't agree with it, that might be a limitation, but I'm sorry, I'm trying to go through all the things on the act. I think that might just be the hardest limitation is,
Right.
A voice.
Okay. Bill?
Yes, all the town departments or people that work under the Board of Selectmen have to have the authority to do their jobs. How would you hold those positions accountable for doing their jobs?
I think that it would be beneficial for the town to have like monthly department head meetings where we all get together, all the different departments together, and air whatever issues they're having. I think I'm not a micromanager, and I do believe, the fire chief, I wouldn't know his job, what he needs to do, but I feel follow-ups and evaluations and conversation, communication, I think is the best way to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Okay, as personnel director in the town, what do you consider the most effective plan in conducting yearly evaluations of job performances of key department personnel as required under the Town Administrator Act?
As far as evaluations go, I feel that there should be templates that we should have for each department because every person has a different job descriptions, job expectations. And I feel that there should be definitely yearly evaluations at least. If someone is not performing up to their par, an improvement plan should be in place to show progress over the following year. And I would want to get input from subordinates, the Board of Selectmen, higher-ups, to do a full evaluation.
Thank you.
There's a few questions in that one.
Back to Don?
Sarah, yes. How would you notify the board of activities between meetings?
I believe I brought this up to the search committee that, in West Bridgewater, we use Google Docs, which is a live, I want to say like it's in the cloud, but it's a live document that you guys could access if I shared documents with you, and you could see what was happening. I could log any person that came in and spoke to me that day, any phone calls, any issues, and so there could be live documents going at all times. Or if it's something precedent, I would email you, call you. With technology right now, it can be real-time information so easily. But those are just a few examples. There's so many different platforms that we could use, but it's really what you would be comfortable with. But it could be remote access for all of you so that you could see it real-time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, my question. I'm going to move from the question that I actually had assigned, which I think you've already answered, explain teamwork concept and how you work to encourage cooperation. You talked about bringing boards together and so forth, other groups and different opinions, so. Do you have any grant writing experience, grants?
Yes.
Could you tell me some and some?
Sure. We have, I personally write the 240 SPED grant for the school department. I write the teacher quality grant for the school department. We've also done some, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's a 761 grant. Yes.
Which ones was your most successful grant that you received?
Well, the teacher quality grant and the 240 SPED grant are vital to our school department, so I would say that those are very important. We did do one so we could enhance our after-school math program so that we could increase our MCAS scores, and that was a great one, but sometimes grants are cut, so we didn't get it again.
Okay, question. Actually, it's a two-parter. How would you go about getting land use committees on the same page and help them work together to assist applicants rather than to hinder the process of licensing and permitting, and avoid throwing up any additional and unwarranted roadblocks to help attract commercial establishments in the town of Hanson? And then part B, how familiar are you with the areas of Hanson that probably are in dire need to be developed for revenue, revenue producing commercial or industrial?
Sure. Well, I do know that the Old Plymouth Hospital is a big topic with you right now. As far as some other land use, I'm not too familiar with what else is available out there. I know that it's a bedroom town and you definitely need some business here. And I know that you started the Hanson Business Mentoring Network was recently started. I would love to get them involved with some of the applicants. I really just feel like communication and sitting down together and working the boards together is just so beneficial, instead of pointing and whatnot. It'd be wonderful just to sit down and hash it out. Roadblocks shouldn't happen when it comes to applicants like that, especially when you need it in town.
Bill?
Okay, could you discuss a little bit about, currently our finance committee is appointed by the town moderator, not the Board of Selectmen. Just how you would maintain a relationship between the board and the finance committee?
Sure. I actually last Thursday presented my budget to the finance committee, and we have a wonderful working relationship. One of the things we also tried to do was set up more, certain people of the finance committee go to certain departments, so they get a real full knowledge of the departments. I mean, a school budget is, usually more than half the town's budget. And a lot of the finance committee doesn't understand the full minutia of the budget. And it goes for the fire department, the police department, what really is needed for those departments. So maybe subcommittees of the finance committee might bring the town a little bit together. And I think the Board of Selectmen and the finance committee really need to work together because they're both recommending the articles and the budgets to the town meeting. I really feel like it's almost, the finance committee is a sub-part of the Board of Selectmen. I know that they're not appointed by you, but it doesn't mean you can't work together.
Do you know who does appoint us?
Moderator?
No.
Oh, for West Bridgewater?
No, you just said our moderator, right?
Yes.
Our moderator, who appoints our finance committee?
Oh, I thought it was the moderator.
Yeah, you did. You just said the right answer. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I thought it was the moderator.
No, you didn't.
How would you define your management style as a town administrator?
Like I said before, I'm not a micromanager. I like to collaborate. I like to follow up with people. When someone is working over your shoulder, people get nervous, and I don't think that's an appropriate way. I like to encourage people to want to work well. I think a work ethic is huge. And so I'm definitely not a micromanager and a team player. I understand that sometimes you have to be firm, but you can always do that in a respectful way. So definitely not a micromanager.
Okay, thank you.
John?
Again, what efforts have you made to learn about the town of Hanson? And have you read the Administrators Act?
Yes, I have read the act. besides doing research, reading some minutes, I've attended a few of your meetings. And, you know, I do have some friends that live in the town of Hanson, so just trying to get the vibe of it. You have the Voices of Hanson, I believe, Facebook page, and I'm not sure who actually runs that, but luckily with technology nowadays, you can find a lot of information. But I found the most beneficial, especially to kind of get your guys' personalities, was to attend your meetings.
That's right, we did attend 2 of our
Yeah,
meetings.
thank you.
Thank you.
Regional school experience could you give us some of your background on that?
Sure.
You did earlier, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I personally have not worked for a regional school district. I have been a member of the Mass Association of School Business Officials for the last 8 years. So every conference, there's some sort of a regional conference, part of the conference. Christine Sacco and I have been business managers for the same amount of years, so I am very familiar with her, and we're constantly going back and forth about school issues. So, you know, I'm very familiar with the school department and how school is run. The major difference is they have a treasurer, they have their E&D, they carry a lot of their own costs, but I understand that that affects the town, of course.
Do you know anything about the municipal representative or regional rep position?
Not so much.
No, it's kind of a specific question, so.
Okay.
Okay. It's part of the, they deal with matters of concerning collective bargaining. But I guess it's not, but you answered the question with regard to the school commission, school committee stuff, thank you.
Have you had a chance to study what your, the current financial condition of the town of Hanson? And how would you go about stabilizing the financial condition of the town of Hanson for future years, or improving it as necessary? That's part A. And how do you view an override as far as a vehicle for balancing the budget?
Sure. I am aware that your growth has been down this year, and that you do have some debt exclusions out there. I'm sorry, I want to look at my notes because I've taken some. As far as stabilizing for the future years, I think that really comes down to, again, meeting with the department heads and really going through the budgets. I feel that bringing businesses into town will really help the residents with taxes. And Christine's probably going to kill me when I say this because she watches this, but overrides for balancing budgets, I'm just not a fan of. You know, there's Proposition 2.5 for a reason, and it's to keep in control, I think, municipal spending. I do feel that it's appropriate in certain occasions if you want to do a school project or, you know, highway department project or something like that. But as far as balancing the budget, I'm not a big fan. I think major discussion needs to be made before that it comes to that position.
I'm all set, in your comments that answered my question. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Discuss a situation where there's been opposition to a project or plan and how you would deal with it.
Well, the one that just comes, well, I have a couple, but the one this year that was a really big problem, and I didn't think it was going to be. I don't know if any of you have driven through the center of West Bridgewater when they were doing the construction.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right. So we rerouted all the bus routes around the center of West Bridgewater. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, but we had a lot of backlash on that, a lot of phone calls, a lot of upset residents. You know, I've had the same bus driver for 10 years and I have someone different. So I listened to every single person that called, explained why. We also brought the bus company to the school committee meeting so it could be on camera, explain why we did everything. I think communication and information to residents is usually the hugest to avoid issues. I'm sure I have a million others, but that's one that stands out in my mind right now.
Good, thank you.
Don, did you have any more questions?
No, not at this time, no.
I do. How strong is your experience in understanding and working on RFPs, request for proposal, and municipal procurement laws?
Very well.
Okay.
Very well. Like I said, we're on our 3rd MSBA building, so we went out for our OPM, our architect, the general contractor, sub-filed bidders. When it becomes a technical RFP or an RFQ, obviously it would be nice to either go out for an engineering, to get the specifications correct. But very familiar.
Kenny, you asked the question, what's the threshold, money threshold on what, project manager?
Yeah.
Was that it?
There was just different, yeah.
There's different thresholds. 30B, you have 10,000 and under, you can do sound business practices. 25,000, you get free quotes. Anything over, you have to have sealed bids. When it comes to chapter 149, then it's a whole other thresholds.
Thank
Very
you.
familiar.
Excellent.
Still no question there.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
There's other ones in here. There's plenty. You want me to ask this one?
Oh, the hypothetical question? The selectmen, the Board of Selectmen approach you, and they ask you to do all you can to support and promote a multi-million-dollar town project, which calls for the approval, not only approval of a debt exclusion at town meeting, but also a subsequent ballot question. They asked you to set up a social media page expressly for that purpose, and to limit public input to just those who have positive comments on the project. How do you respond?
I cannot ethically do that. That's how I respond. When we did our school building project, obviously, we need to do an override, and we want to be like, go, vote yes, but you can't legally do that. Our school committee reached out to some parents and had them make a coalition, and they could go vote and promote it that way. All we can say is this is when you can vote, and this is the question you're voting on. But I can't promote a yes
Well,
vote.
the other question is, if it passed the town meeting prior to, and then you have 2 weeks before the ballot question, if you were to hold public informational meetings, how would you handle those public informational hearings
And we did-
prior to the
Yep.
ballot question?
And we did hold many public information meetings, and it was all factual. It wasn't to persuade. Obviously, it's like, hey, obviously the roof is leaking, this is an issue. But it was factual. It was not to persuade them one way or another. It was just to make them informed.
Okay, great.
So it had both pros and cons to the public?
Yep. We had, this is how much your tax is going to increase, but these are our issues. All information that we possibly could give was given.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I don't have any more questions, so.
Okay.
I do on the social media, as a follow-up.
Oh, okay.
Social media is a big concern of mine, okay? How do you feel about posting let's say your contract was coming up for renegotiation, and you put it out on social media and you say, you're trying to get support for that. What were your thoughts on that?
I feel that social media for a town is to get information out to people. I do not feel it's a place for me to, well, first of all, I would never go out and publicly bash anybody I work for. I also don't think that that's a place for social media. I have pictures of my dogs on Facebook. I'm not one to air my political views or anything like that. It's social media. It's supposed to not be for those reasons.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. So I think that completes the questioning. The way we're going from here is we're going to try to, after this final interview, we're going to try to pick 2 finalists for the position. Then we're going to, the naming of the final town administrator position, and our pick will be subject pending further background checks and reference checks.
Sure.
And we're going to try to make that vote next Tuesday night.
Okay.
So we're going to give you the opportunity now to summarize why you feel you'd be the best pick
Ask
for a
questions,
new
too.
town administrator. If you want to ask us any questions, you can do that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I asked a few questions at the first interview, so I don't think I have any more. I just feel that over my 8 years being in West Bridgewater, I have been able to have a really good working relationship with all different departments. Whether or not I liked them personally, it didn't matter. I get along with all of them. My budget experience, I was a finance major economics minor, so the finances and municipal accounting for those reasons I am very efficient with. And personally, I have not applied to any other town administrator job. This is the only one I've applied to because I felt the town of Hanson was a perfect fit for me. I think it's very comparable to where I work now. You know, I know there's a town of Canton job open, and that's not my interest. My interest is actually the town of Hanson. I think it's a wonderful, small town, and I think you need, you know, a town administrator that's gonna stick around for more than a few years. I'm here for the longevity of it. I'm not a job jumper, and, you know, I really feel that, you know, and I also enjoyed coming to the other Board of Selectmen's meetings, because I feel like I got your personality, did a little back interview on you guys, and, you know, I just really feel like it's a good fit.
You're the only one who attached references to your contract, to your resume.
That's really,
Well done.
thank you.
Quick question, I didn't ask. Do you know what our budget amount is approximately?
Yeah, your town budget is about 22 million, the school is about 9, I believe, so that leaves about a $13 million budget, which is what I'm very familiar with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good math, yeah. There is a balance there.
I did it right. Without my Excel spreadsheet, I did it right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just one thing, I am in California next week, on the 29th, so normally I would come to your meeting. So if you need anything beforehand, I'm flying out Monday morning, but you can always get me email. You have my email. So.
Mary knows how to email.
Yes,
Great.
so
Okay.
thank you so much for
Thank
your
you very much.
time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Sarah.
you.
Mary, what would be the best way to pick two candidates? Is it possible? Mary, I'm not saying.
Who do you want, Mary?
No, I'm not gonna say, the best way to do this and come down with two candidates, could we ask you to tally what our votes were, and then you can announce how each member of the Board of Selectmen
Well,
tallied and voted?
why don't we talk about each member that we interviewed?
I'm
Some
just
of-
trying to know how to.
Some of our
do this.
likes and dislikes, or
Somebody could
not-
make a motion, I move to put so-and-so forward. And somebody second it. If nobody seconds it, then somebody can move the next person. If you want to write it down on a sheet, I can tally it up while you talk about them, whatever the board wants to do.
What's the board's pleasure?
Before we call it to vote, I think we should try to compare notes on each candidate. I think that might be a good idea. I'd like to see that kind of strategy work, and then move into voting for each candidate, no matter what.
All right, in other words, how many votes does so-and-so have?
Exactly.
How many votes
How many
is-
people select this person? How many people select this person?
As one of the two?
As one of the two, correct.
Okay.
How are your thoughts on that? What do you think, Kenny? Bill? Donnie? you good
Yeah, I don't
with
know
this?
that I don't know if we need to vote on all four. I think we should talk about them and then maybe do what Mary said, somebody just make a,
Well, I just wanted to, the reason why I said all four, Kenny, was that I was trying to, and I'm not suggesting that you're not, but just trying to be respectful to the four people who came here, because I think they're all great candidates, I really do. I want to thank the board for giving us some really highly qualified people here. I think we've got some great talent on these. Each member has some
I
pros.
think you could take all four of them and flip a coin, to be honest with you. They're so close.
Yeah, no,
Let's not do that.
no, I wouldn't do that.
I'm not going to add much to this, but that's no lie.
You ever see that as
You
an
want me to give Mary a heart
option?
attack?
It's happened, so I don't want you to.
Start a football game.
I know.
And they're so close and so good for
Yeah, they are.
everyone.
They're good, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, can we open for discussion real quick for
yeah.
each candidate? Would you mind, Kenny, at least if we do
yeah,
that?
absolutely. I say we open it for discussion.
So I'll take them in the order in which we, why don't we take them in the order in which we received them? How does that feel? So Gregory Scott Enos, what were your thoughts about some of his strengths and weaknesses? How did you guys perceive him as a potential town administrator for the town of Hanson? Kenny?
I liked him. I did, I liked him. As an assistant, he could grow into the role.
Like I told you before,
Yep.
I'm having a hard, difficult time here. because I've been through this before, twice before.
Mm-hmm.
And one was a good one and one wasn't a bad one, so.
A lot of the answers were similar, many of them were. What I liked about Greg was some of the fact that he wrote a number of different grants and that they were quite successful. I know 3 of them, which he listed here. He talked about people doing their jobs and making sure that, I think each one of the candidates basically, in their own way, some of them specifically said that they weren't going to micromanage, they didn't like to micromanage. I thought that was well said. I think his experience with our current school committee, that's a big plus, you know what I'm saying? He understands, he works with those people, he knows with the school committee members, he knows all of them. I think he's dealt definitely with our own town personnel. Rich LaCamera, I'm sure at one point in time, he didn't specifically say so, but I'm sure he's had some input with him. We asked him about the social media policy. He seemed to say the same thing with regard to how he felt about posting contract or personal items versus using it as a media tool. Yeah, yep. You asked him, Donnie, if he read the Town Administrator Act. He brought a copy in here with him. He had it clearly. He understood it. He wrote Massachusetts Historical Grant. I mean, I didn't see anything. He understood also the municipal rep. He had no questions for the board, and he made his pitch.
How about
I
the
like
next
this.
guy?
I did particularly like his idea about sharing the different equipment. It's an idea. It's a new idea. It's a different idea. It might have some challenges. But he talked about that sweeper, street sweepers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the challenge that it's a tool that's not used
We
every single
do that
day.
now.
We do that now?
Hanson does that.
Okay.
We have that now with
Yeah.
Pembroke and Hanover.
I didn't know.
Yeah, we
that.
used to. We don't anymore.
I don't
Oh,
think
you
we
don't
did. Yeah,
anymore?
we don't.
Yeah, I think it's dead.
So if
You know,
he's bringing that
it's in
back. that's-
Hanover.
Yeah.
It's not in Hanson, I can tell you that. How about the next guy, Jim?
I would think personally, some of the maybe cons, I think he was soft-spoken. I think, I wish there was maybe more influx to his voice. I'm used to,
We're talking
I'm
about
used to my
Mr.
household
McHugh?
and people yelling at me, I guess.
We're talking about Mr. McHugh? Right?
No,
No,
we're
no,
still
I'm
with
not.
Oh, you still,
Greg.
I'm still
okay.
on Greg, but that's what I had, so I don't want to hog up the whole time. Anybody else?
No,
Okay.
I thought they were all good. I thought they all had various strengths.
Mhm.
A few of them had a few weaknesses, but as Dawn said, I think that any one of them would be good. I think some stronger than others.
Mhm.
I have my personal opinions on which one has the experience and who could walk in and do the job right away and is turnkey. And I know who the ones that have good experiences, who needs work in certain areas. I mean, just talking to them, that came across pretty obviously, is who had the strength in all, most of the areas, who had the strengths in certain areas, and who needed some experience in some of the areas that are outlined in the Town Administrator Act.
Okay.
I mean, I can't say it any better than that.
So you're making a summation of all the candidates at once?
Yeah.
Okay. If we're moving on to Mr. McHugh, I thought I thought he seemed outspoken, Kenny, but in all honesty, he seems like a guy, one of the things that took me back was when he said he wouldn't be led by the nose. I thought that was a great thing. I'm looking at his resume in terms of organization affiliations, his education certificates, his recent publications. I thought his answers were smooth. I thought they were well said. I liked his answer, obviously, with regard to the social media policy. It was spot on. For a while there, I'll be honest, I thought, aside from some people, few people in town, I thought we were the only ones who felt this way. But he knew the budget amount. He was the first one who said the amount, 22 million. He's done some history. He's got huge experience within town government. he's been a town administrator, he is a town administrator, excuse me. He was also for town of Avon. He was a Board of Selectmen member, so he knows from our point of view how things are. I don't know, I'll be honest with you guys, in all frankness, I was floored with some of his responses. Maybe his soft-spokenness might be a con, Kenny, but I'll be honest with you, some people have a tendency to try to listen harder for somebody who's more soft-spoken, you know? He did not come across to me as somebody who could be pushed over. You know, I like the way Rich deals with us, and he'll tell you like it is, right? Rich LaCamera's, that's a great quality that we have with him. So, anyways, that's how I felt about Mr. McHugh.
I totally share your sentiments.
Mr. John Hurd, moving on to the next one, unless you guys want to add or say anything. I think he had a more laid-back approach. I think he was more relaxed during his interview. He certainly is a good
I'm not
conversationalist.
quite sure what he does now. If you look at the resume.
His resume has a lot of other professional
the dates
experience.
and-
Yeah,
He's been everywhere.
I'm just really not sure what that guy does.
he's a man of the
He's been all
world.
over the world.
Yeah, he has.
He's been to China.
Yeah.
He even
He's
speaks
been,
Chinese.
I did notice he was in China. Yeah. I'm looking, I didn't read.
No, you're right. I think he could sell.
Seemed like a nice guy, but
I think he could sell anybody anything he wanted to. That's for certain. You know, he's definitely a businessman. That's what his resume leads to. But he does say obviously went to Curry College, Beijing University in China, which is a good question, Kenny. You caught that one. Asked him if he knew Chinese, right? What I liked about his approach was he had basically the same answers where he said bring people together. He looked at some of the meetings. I don't know if he was one of the people who offered to come to our Board of Selectmen meetings. Is that true, Mr. Selectman?
What's that?
Is this the type? Was this gentleman asked if he should come to a couple of the Board of Selectmen meetings, or no? Do you know? Do you remember or no?
He did send me an email.
He did send you an email.
Yeah.
So what's my point? My point is that I think he would have probably come to some of these meetings, to our Board of Selectmen meetings. But Bruce gave him an opinion that might be otherwise noted, whereas Sarah just came on her own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I think he understood, he knew what to do about the regional school issues, especially with the municipal rep. He did his homework.
I like what he said about the hospital
Yep.
and the different ways to possibly be able to finance a
Go slowly.
demolition.
Yep,
on the
go
hospital.
slowly, yep. And 16 years is long enough, I agree with you, Kenny. You got it. So, he was also not interested in hopping around, he said. So he was a strong personality, too. I don't think that man would be easily pushed over, okay? Which is a good strength. Some of the cons might be, well, I think maybe what you keyed on it, Kenny, when you talked about his resume, right? He's been all over, so. Some of the, I know that he's a current selectman. He's had a
No,
lot
he's a
of.
former.
No.
Excuse me, a former
Former
selectman, I apologize. I was thinking of the previous candidate, yeah.
I
And
think he owns his own business,
he owns his
Jim.
own AMT Bioproducts business, right?
Yeah.
And he talked about how, I know he was creating fertilizer with it, so he made it from 200,000 to, I forget what the amount was, but.
4 or 5 million.
Yeah. Okay. Next and last one we had was Sarah. You know, a lot of this type of job, I think, guys, we're looking for is personality, how they're gonna interact with people, especially ourselves, you know, on the job. And my interpretation is that not everybody's gonna know everything, just all for one school. She should, even though she works for the school, she understands that it's everybody who pays for it, you know? I liked her suggestion on Google Documents, right, Bill? That's, you know, you can see the phone calls coming in and out, her schedule, what that's gonna be. We talked about some of that before on previous meetings, I know we did. Grants that she's written. She talked about the Old Plymouth County, I know the bedroom community mentoring network. She wanted to tie into that committee that I think Laura Kemet is running right now. I thought her answer on the override and a couple of the override questions that you asked was appropriate too. And she made it clear that although she was friends with Christine Suko, she didn't like the fact that that an override was the way to go.
Okay. All right, so, anybody else?
Yes.
Yes.
I would like to speak on that. As all of us, I think, were duly impressed with all of the interviews, and myself personally, I'm going to go right to my point is, I'm an experienced guy. I believe in experience. We have two candidates that bring experience to the job, not only currently, but also working as an assistant administrator. I think quite honestly that Mr. McHugh kind of hit it out of the park. He had an answer for every question. He had solutions to every question. He had a hands-on approach. He's currently doing the job. I don't think we can afford the time to train another town administrator. And with all due respect to the candidates, they were very impressive. But Mr.
McHugh.
Not Mr. McHugh, the second fellow. I mean, he's extremely articulate. He brings a world of experience to it, but he doesn't bring municipal experience to the job. The young lady that was just here, she tremendous amount of experience, but all in schools, not a broad approach to experience. And again, with no disrespect to them, I was impressed with all of their contribute. But my feeling is that we should go someone with experience, someone that can hit the ground running, so to speak, even though I think their hearts are in the right place, quite honestly. They're enthusiastically in application for the job, and I was very impressed with that. But I do think that I would pick Mr. McHugh first and Mr. Eno second as far as the two candidates.
So candidates number one.
Number one would be Mr. McHugh, and number two would be
Mr. Enos being the first one we interviewed.
Yes,
correct? And
my position.
And Mr. McHugh being the second interviewer.
Mr. McHugh was the second.
He was the second interviewer, but what I meant as far as the position.
Yeah. So numbers one and two.
Number one and two, McHugh and Enos.
Okay.
And I base that on experience and the fact that I feel they could come on board and get right into it, so to speak.
All right.
And again, no disrespect, I was very impressed with all of the candidates.
My two, Bill, if you want my two, Bill, would be definitely Mr. McHugh was one of the candidates that was there. And then I'm going to probably go for Sarah.
Don't recognize that.
I'm going to go for Sarah because I like the way she came in. I know that she lacks municipal experience, but she seems to have a clear understanding of how the school systems work. I think that's an easy part to fill. I know that she may not have much town experience, but she answered the question, Kenny, when we asked her the amounts on RFPs. She understands it well. I like her style, and I like her demeanor on it. So those are my two picks. Sorry.
My two picks would be, as I said, my number one pick would be Mr. McHugh. I don't think that you could find anybody more experienced, more educated, and more candid with his answers. And he impresses me as being kind of a non-political person. He's an administrator and a manager first, and that was what impressed me most about him and his answers. My second pick would be, believe it or not, would be Chana, because even though he doesn't have the experience, I think he's such a fast learner, and his experience in Lakeville, he picked up so much down there. He just knows everything about everything, and his management style would be to basically take a position and run with it and solve it, okay, and not stop. And I kind of like that. and not get sidetracked.
Like I said, I think he could sell us, he could sell ice cream to the Eskimos, right? Mary, is that how it goes? Yeah.
That's just
we
my
don't need
No,
impression.
I agree, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. And he has, and it could be, I have a business background, so I appreciate somebody with a business background. And how he's, he's been successful in business. And he helped partly to bring Lakeville to where it is today, as being a member of the Board of Selectmen. And so that's why he's my preference, because he does have that business background combined with the municipal background to go with it.
Again, he was a good candidate. He said that, he did a lot of driving around the town, except for he didn't meet the Hanson Middle School. I think that was the only place, but he made the effort to go out there, and find out
He
about our
didn't get to
town.
the middle school.
Yeah.
No, he did not get to the middle school.
Oh, kidding.
No, I know, Bill.
No, he did a good job.
So, how do you want to handle the vote on this?
Well, we'll keep going. And Kenny, what are your two
Kenny,
picks?
what do you do?
Go ahead. We gotta figure out whether we want, McHugh, he definitely, obviously has the experience. There's no question about it. But, do we wanna go with a guy that's got experience and maybe only gonna be here for a short time? Or do you wanna go with someone with a little less experience that maybe will be here for a long time that,
He said he was gonna move into his parents' house, I think, Ken.
well, they haven't died yet, Joe.
Well, they're not dying, they're moving, Kenny, to Florida.
Oh, all right. You take that back.
I hope they're not
Hopefully
dying. Yeah.
So the bottom line, I pick,
Who do you
I pick McHugh, and I agree with Jim, Sarah. I liked her, I think you could teach her,
Yeah.
I
She
don't know
can
if
fill in the
Bulldog
gaps.
is always the best move, but
So that leaves,
I think she's hungry for the
so
job,
yeah,
too,
we
Ken.
have to
She's
hear
willing
from Dawn.
Donnie, you're,
I picked the
it's all up
third-
to you, Don.
I picked the third and fourth.
Okay, the third is, okay, and you picked Sarah and you picked John.
all right, so McHugh and Smith move forward,
Huh?
based on what Don just said.
Yeah,
He picked 3 and 4.
So you got 3 for.
3 and 4?
That's
Don
what
picked
Don,
Johnner.
what did you say, Donnie?
and
Give us the
I have a
names.
Question, do you
Hurd
have?
and Smith.
yeah.
Is that
He's-
the
He
name?
knows what he's talking about.
Yep.
He said Hurd and Smith.
So you have
You got 4 votes for
4
McHugh.
votes for McHugh,
Yeah,
Right?
and you have 3 votes for Smith.
right.
Okay.
And then you got 2 votes for
Shauna.
Shauna, if my math is right.
All right, do you want to make a motion to that effect for the 2 candidates?
Motion motion for the 2 candidates, McHugh and Smith, as the finalists to be determined next week as town administrator,
Pending reference?
pending obviously reference checks and
Yeah,
background
background
checks, yes.
Okay, have a second for that?
Second.
What kind of a question do you have?
I suppose more of the right point.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. As a constituent and a member of the town, I would like to ask that when you go in and you're going to make your final decision, a lot of the...
Who are you? You should
Oh,
have,
thank you, Joe Campbell, 150 Woodbine Ave, thank you. I wanted to just make a point that Selectman Mitchell was getting ready to talk about. Going forward and going into making the final decision, I would like to make the point, not to dictate, but just to reiterate that you're paving the way for the town, for the future. Obviously, one of the things that the rest of the citizens that I've spoken with around town is longevity. So I would like to see if there's any possibility that the 5 members would make longevity one of the biggest points. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Longevity in what respect?
Staying here, right?
Staying.
How do you know they're gonna stay here?
well, Mr. McHugh did say he was gonna move into his parents' house, so that's going along with the
I would
trends.
think he's getting tired of moving around, because he's been in Avon, and then he's been down to Rochester. You're probably looking for a nice place to settle in, wouldn't you think?
Well, much like Hanson, he came back, right? 12 years ago he was here for
Yeah.
an interview?
He wanted
was crazy,
Hanson
Mary?
12 years ago.
12 years of punishment.
He must have liked something, he came back.
Yeah. Okay, we had a motion and a second?
From Mr. McHugh and Mrs. Smith, Ms. Smith, I
Yeah,
apologize.
okay. All those in favor? Okay. All those opposed? All those not voting?
McHugh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So is that a no, or is that a not voting?
Well, I have wrapped up both candidates, Bill. Did you want not just one and not the other?
No,
Okay.
well, I would go with McHugh myself, but
I had wrapped both candidates into the same motion. Bill, did you want me to create two different motions instead?
that's
It's up to you.
entirely up to you. No,
Mary, why don't I make it two different motions instead? So I'm gonna retract what we said, okay? So motion to advance Mr. McHugh to the next level of town administrator, pending background checks and, of course,
Credit check.
background checks.
Second.
second? Oh, you got it, okay.
That's it.
It's okay.
Okay. In a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? One. Okay.
Motion to move forward, Ms. Sarah Smith, as, to the next level of town administrator, pending, of course, background checks and reference checks. Again, for the town administrator position, apologize. Same wording, Mary, for the last one, but just replace it with
Second.
Sarah.
Okay, second.
Motion second made and seconded, right? Oh, no.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? Okay. All right, so there's your two candidates. So Mary, if you can notify those two candidates
I will.
that they've been selected as the two finalists, and selection will have a vote next week. And thank the other two candidates for their time and efforts. And we appreciate them coming in and applying for the position. And we'll certainly hold their resumes and applications on file for possible future consideration. Okay.
Old business.
Old business, okay? Now we're into old business. Vote statement of interest for McQuon School, the core project. We voted number 6 last week, but we neglected to,
Well, we mentioned that the core, that they needed to do an SOI for
Yeah,
McQuon.
but we didn't take a formal vote,
Formal vote, yeah.
which we should have.
Okay.
So what we need is a motion to inform the school committee that we want an SOI submitted, core SOI submitted for replacement of the McQuon School.
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Okay.
Bill got it in.
Motion.
Bill got it.
I got it that time.
Yeah, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.